This is the D6 Generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
You're wrong! If you're getting any compensation, it's not charity!
Russ Wakelin. You put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking. And Rafe, Hollywood Granger.
Now that's Jimmy Django right there.
With contributions from Total Fangirl
Vampires do not sparkle.
and our loyal listeners.
One game is very like another till the D6G reviews it, brother.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming out to the speed of a Lancia, hurled with all the training and ferocity of Avelites. Today's edition is brought to you by Wooden Wars, floor-top battles with fine wooden soldiers. You get to crawl around on the floor and toss rubber balls at them. Bringing war back to the floor, search for Wooden Wars on Kickstarter or go to www.skullandcrown.com. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today, as always, our panelists are Russ Rabinus Wakelin and Rafe Gannicus Granger. Let's begin. Issue number 1. Spartacus was a leader of the slaves in the Third Servile War, a major slave uprising against the Roman Republic. Little is known about Spartacus beyond the events of the war, and surviving historical accounts are somewhat contradictory and may not always be reliable. All sources agree that he was a former gladiator and an accomplished military leader. Question. According to most sources, Spartacus led a revolt from the gladiatorial school of Lentulus Batiatus near Capua, and after their plot was betrayed, fought his way clear with 70 compatriots using nothing but kitchen implements, eventually going to ground near what famous Italian volcano south of Rome? Rascus Rafe.
I don't know that, but he tossed rubber balls at them to escape.
Rommel Russ.
I'm going to go with Vesuvius. It's the only volcano name I could remember.
And of course, it is the only one that is correct. That makes
Nice.
Russ right, and Rafe wrong. He was then, of course, hounded south further and further before his eventual defeat and the crucifixion of 6,000 of his followers along the Appian Way.
Ouch.
Happy endings all around, really. Issue number 2. First run at Gen Con 2003, True Dungeon has grown by leaps and bounds from one year to the next, constantly adding props, monsters, and effects that bring the entire event closer and closer to a real-life dungeon crawl. Each year, adventurers are welcomed into a more and more realistic world of fantasy combat and puzzle solving, which continues to be the single largest attraction at Gen Con. Question. What new addition was first introduced to True Dungeon in 2007's adventure, Race Across Greyhawk, truly kicking the entire event up to the next level? Rary Russ.
I'm going to go with the Inn.
Rigby Rafe.
Sally the Red Dragon.
Rawr, wrong. Live action monsters, of course, with the addition of costumed volunteers playing the roles of a shambling mound, a Medusa, and a stone golem. Our friend Shifty's favorite true elements were introduced. Issue number 3. A gladiator was an armed combatant who entertained audiences in the Roman Republic and Empire in violent confrontations with other gladiators, wild animals, and condemned criminals. Some gladiators were volunteers who risked their legal and social standing and their lives by appearing in the arena. Most were despised as slaves, however, schooled under harsh conditions and socially marginalized. Question. Should a gladiator survive to win the adulation of the crowds and the esteem of his owners, he could hope to one day win his freedom from the games and take his place among free men. To symbolize this transition, a gladiator was honored with a rudus and the title Rudarius. What is a rudus? Retiarus Russ.
I'm going to go with a plant root.
Venator Rafe.
It's when an angry fan would watch the games.
Oh, come on, guys. A wooden sword.
All right.
How many movies and TV shows
I
about
should know
gladiators
that.
have you not seen? I would have
Yeah.
also accepted wooden rod, as historical accounts seem to vary. Issue number 4. One of the many joys of travel, of course, is always the chance to try new foods and local cuisines, take our fancy or leave us cold. We build a wider understanding of the world around us and a greater appreciation of the gustatory pleasures available far and wide. Whether it's the fried tenderloin, not chicken of Indianapolis, or the mealy chunks of protein that are haggis, you haven't truly traveled until you've tasted the locals' foods. Question. The primary surprise ingredient of the Schumann at Scotty's Brewhouse is, of course, peanut butter. Peanut butter, as we know it, is traced historically back to a U.S. patent dating to what year of the 19th century? Goober Granger.
1818.
Stonewall Wakelin.
I got nothing.
Oh, Rafe is almost exactly diametrically opposed to the correct answer at 1884. So cowboys could have had peanut butter burgers.
Yum.
Cowboys and peanut butter burgers.
And beans.
Lucky dogs.
Now you're talking.
That's it for now. Thanks for listening and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by GameSalute.com. Check out gaming news or find out what the new hotness is on Springboard. GameSalute.com.
And by Battle Foam, protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. All by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And Wargame Soldiers and Strategy Magazine, making historical wargaming less scary and more fun.
Hello!
Hello.
What happened there? That was-
I couldn't resist.
I don't even know what happened there. And welcome to episode 111 of the D6 Generation.
F-111.
I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Alon.
And I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger.
Hey,
Back
Rafe.
into his house.
Welcome back.
Thank you, guys.
We tried to
Thanks
keep the
for having
chair-
me sit in. I'm psyched.
Try to keep the chair warm for you there. How's it feel? Good?
It feels good. It feels good. You know, I was really psyched listening to the last episode with our friend Norbert. He got me all jazzed up. I'm even drinking English tea.
Nice.
Look at
Nice.
that. You're
Nice.
all in character.
Yep.
You know, I got to think they don't drink English tea in England because then it would just be tea.
It's just tea.
Like Chinese food in China.
Right. It really wouldn't.
Just food.
Right. It doesn't feel specific enough. So,
Go to a food restaurant.
Craig, what are we talking about today's show, Craig?
Well, today we're going to do another little bit of a Gen Con wrap-up, and we are going to then review the ridiculously awesome and amazing game, am I giving too much away, Spartacus.
Oh, yes, indeed we are.
Blood.
I'm excited about hearing about it because I'm completely in the dark about this.
You're going to
game.
like this game,
Not-
Rafe. I'm
not
going to
that I
predict.
want to be, but I just for whatever reason, and so I'm psyched to hear about it.
These
Actually.
mechanics are right up your alley.
The runaway hit locally
Yeah,
Indeed.
cool.
from Gen Con.
Before we get to all that, though, we should talk about, let's see. Still taking a break from our contest. We're having a new contest soon now that we've recovered from Gen Con and all that nonsense. So that'll be coming up rather
We
quickly.
got a little mini contest going on in Jevernotis, which will be later on in the show.
Right. And we
But-
did send out all of our prizes. So I believe everybody should have their Leviathans and their Balance of Powers and all that good stuff.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
if you did not receive that by yet, email us and let us know. You should have gotten it by now.
Very nice. Yes. I'd like to talk about one or two things right now.
Sure.
First, I'd like to mention a very quick shout out to a really good friend of both Russ and I from way back when. His name is Drew. He works at a new gaming company, and they've got a new property. I'm not going to tell you a lot about it. Just check out Fantaside. It's a Kickstarter, and we don't normally tease this sort of thing, and Ruff's going to be really angry at me because I'm going to do it without telling him I was going to do it.
Yes.
But there are 3 huge names in gaming design who have designed this game, Fantaside, which is kickstarting
That's
right
true.
now. And we may or may not have 1, 2, or all 3 of them in a upcoming episode.
See,
So
now if
just
it
go
falls
ahead.
through, we're going to feel evil.
We are.
You can't tease people like that. But
Not
hopefully
evil,
it'll happen.
I'm going to feel even more sad and depressed.
Yes.
Speaking of sad and depressed, the other thing I would like to talk about is how ironic it is that Russ and I would have a slight disagreement on the podcast, and then he would bring it to a venue he knows I have absolutely no connection with, like, oh, I don't know, Facebook.
No. Were you talking about the? Are you talking about
Imperium
the?
versus Empire.
Oh,
And I
yes.
would just like to say that Russ and I argue almost always about 2 different things.
Yes.
I argue cases, and Russ argues.
Facts.
I had it in my head. He
Facts.
argues. No, it was alliterative.
People.
It was beautiful. Oh God, no.
See,
Although Rafe seems to have a very long list of things Russ argues.
Trivia.
I don't know.
no,
I don't know. I don't know where you're going.
Cases.
Love to help you
I'm
out.
cases. I'm cases. And Russ is
The case go rolling along.
concepts.
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 There
Oh,
we go.
good.
Arguing that nowhere in the canon, which of course is spelt with an N, single N. in
There's
there.
2 N's in canon, 3 if you're me.
Right.
Say
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I know you should see how you spell.
Does it
wooden
refer to
steer.
the Galactic Empire as the Imperium? That's all I was saying.
Right.
But Russ is like, but wait, if you go back in time, and all of Russ's supporters on Facebook, in the ancient world, Roman blah blah, Imperium blah blah,
wait,
and a blah blah blah. And then Russ, who either spent 3 hours on Google or 5 minutes talking to his wife, I'm not sure which, found one obscure reference with the word Imperium within the Star Wars canon and went, aha!
No.
I am not wrong.
First of all, if you read the Facebook thread, you'll clearly see that it is evenly divided amongst people who agree with you and with me.
I disagree. It is
so
not.
Are you guys talking
point
about?
was made.
People agree with me. That's what I think.
What's the debate?
Oh, whether you can use the word Imperium into referencing the lands owned by the Galactic Empire in Star Wars.
As compared to
arguing that, like I said, cases versus concepts. Now that I remember it, I'm going to hit him it a couple more times. Okay, that nowhere in the actual stories does it call it the Imperium.
Right, I just said we were talking about. I was, and somehow I said like, well, the planets in the Imperium, blah blah blah, and Craig was like, you can't use Imperium to talk about the Galactic Empire because that's a 40K term.
It's not necessarily a 40K term, but it is in 40K, whereas it is not.
And I was just making the point that the Imperium, by definition, can mean the lands owned by an empire. So I thought it was okay. That's all.
You remind me of my wife sometimes when the argument starts to shift under your feet.
Nothing's shifting. Anyway, I think it's debatable. I think what we learned here is it's debatable. That's what we
learned. There's some Sun Tzu quotes that if I knew any Sun Tzu quotes, I bet they would be appropriate here.
I'm pretty sure they're more to do with war than with
oh, no, it's all about ground and shifting.
Speaking of Sun Tzu, Craig, you sound like you swallowed the sun.
It does,
and it burnt up your throat or something.
No, I'm not. I am unwell. So let's move along, shall we?
Well, we should talk about, before we get into the achievements here, we should talk about the lost chapters. And,
we should.
Rafe, you were kind enough to join us in the last lost chapter.
Awesome having you back in Dunks.
It's actually number 40.
Fun.
Book number 40.
Oh, that donut was gross.
That was book 40?
Yeah, it really was. Kind of crazy. Rafe, do you remember what we talked about?
Yes. We talked about guilty pleasures for gamers.
Yeah, or geeks, right?
Or geeks.
Things we liked, but we're kind of ashamed to like them because either the majority of geeks don't like them or it's just very awkward to tell people that you're a fan of if they don't really fully understand what you like about a particular show. Kind of interesting.
Shame-faced things.
Yeah, it sort of covered quite a gamut, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah, the time whipped by, too.
It was fun. So I hope you checked it out. If you want to check out our lost chapters, the easiest thing to do is go to the d6generation.com and click on the little stack of books on the right-hand side. Or if you are a proud user or a happy user or even an unhappy user of the free iOS or Android app, you can easily listen to the show there as well.
That was an excellent scattergun shot.
The way to handle it. What's it time now for, Craig?
I think it's time for... oh, sorry. Right. Achievements in gaming.
It is time for achievements in gaming. And
I should have tea. That's what I should do.
You should be having... Why don't you get some tea? And Rafe, while Craig is getting his tea, could you read who the shout-out is from this month?
I can. 22 months ago, I welcomed Aaliyah Sheverton to the gaming fold, baptized with a D6G shout-out. Now it's her new brother's turn, Farius Stefan Tiberius Sheverton. I'm going to steal that for role-playing.
That is an awesome name, by the way.
I've used Tiberius before, actually. We'll be playing a lot of games and building a lot of Lego.
Nice.
Ooh, I know some people who work for Lego that would be happy with that use of the word. I'm looking forward to it. Miles from Brighton of the United Kingdom.
Well, congratulations, Miles, and to your whole family for a new edition. That's wonderful news.
That is awesome. My tea is ready.
Our favorite kind of shout-out.
Speaking of Brighton, UK.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying. My tea is ready. You didn't hear the teapot?
I did hear the teapot.
I didn't get the reference to Brighton, though, so I'm glad that you clarified it.
Miles is from Brighton in the UK.
No, I mean the tea part. Never mind.
Me neither, but
move on.
He's ill, so we should just move along.
Wow.
Right. All right. Rafe, what have you been...
Condescend to the sick guy. That's cool.
So, Rafe, what have you been playing since Gen Con? Since later in the show, we'll talk about Gen Con more. What have you been playing since then?
Yep, I have been playing since then. And before I do that, I want to give my own personal shout out to a listener of ours, and he was at Gen Con, and his name is Brandon Molinar. And he works with Dave.
Brandon.
Yes, he is a big fan, I've learned. He works with Dave Ramsey's group, and I've been working with directly with some people with Dave Ramsey on one of my bankruptcy products, and somehow it got out like through the chain of the person I'm dealing with, whose name is Dan, and they're like, wait a minute, Rafe Granger? So like in one of their team meetings, in other words, it came out, as in the podcast, the D6 Generation, Rafe? And apparently he's a pretty big fan of the show, and he was at Gen Con. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, and so I want to give him a shout out. I think that's pretty cool. It's
funny.
It's kind of weird how worlds intersect.
It's a world of laughter, a world of tears.
Now, since then, I've actually played, I think I'm up to 3 games of Malifaux. And Craig looked over at me, and I must have looked maybe befuddled because he's like, "Oh, Rafe, is your brain hurting?" And it wasn't. I was actually just thinking a couple moves ahead.
It actually wasn't looking like it was hurting, which is why I asked, because I was feeling good for you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was having a fun time. I did win. I played old Andy. He's playing a tough crew. You know, he was playing Colette. And he's still learning how his little Muppets there work. And I was playing Lady J, and she's pretty direct. And I had a lot of fun. And I'm no longer, I seem to be totally having no problem with when to cheat and when to soul stone. And when you have a negative flip, you can't cheat. And for whatever reason, the rules are kind of sinking in. To be honest, Russ, I think it's because I'm playing the guild. I don't have to worry about how to do Pandora and all that weird
Press the easy
stuff.
button.
Yeah, press the easy button. And I got to say, man, playing the guild's really fun.
I agree. I love Perdita. I love that.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. So I've been it's kind of fun too. I got all the custom bases and I got all the tokens, and so I've been having a fun time.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more games.
Awesome.
What else?
What have you been doing, Russ?
Wait. You got to tell me about
Net.
You got to tell me about Netrunner, because
I thought we were like alternating. Okay.
No. It's been that long? Jeez. So you got to tell me about Netrunner though, Rafe, because it was like the hotness at the con. And I know you used to love Netrunner. I remember way back in the day of DACA, we were going on a road trip, and you're like, "You got to play this game, Russ. It's called Netrunner. It's amazing." And this is like this when it was ancient even then. Mm-hmm. So
I'm hearing some mixed reports now.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you like the new version? Does it bring back your old memories? Is it nostalgia? Is it still awesome? What do you think?
I can lay down a lot of thought on this. I mean, I've only played like 3 games. I haven't experienced all the runner decks, and I haven't experienced all the corp decks, but I do have a lot of thought. I do think they've totally recaptured how Netrunner felt before. Okay. One of the things I felt, so when I'm talking about how it felt before, it's how it feels now. One of the things I really enjoyed about Netrunner is the fact that you have 2 different decks and play styles. You're not playing with equal armies, if you would. You know, maybe one of you's got a 1,000-point army, and maybe one of you's got a 1,500-point army, which then shifts like the sands of time as the time goes on. Mm-hmm. In my humble opinion, the corporation starts out weak, starts out very threatened, very open to runs by the Netrunner. However, as the time goes on, the corporation gains power, gains cards that'll start zapping the Netrunner, and gains money. So there's a lot of a gambling feel. I can remember, and it's still present, of holding, fistful of 2 agendas that the Netrunner can run against at any time, ice in front of my hand to protect the run. I don't have enough money to protect the run. I hope to God he doesn't pick the 1 out of the 5. I try to sneak and make a dummy. You make these little servers on the side. They're just these areas where you put cards, and you put ice, which are just cards that protect your agendas. And your agendas are how you score points. And I remember kind of trying to bluff and trying to hide. Sometimes you have to discard some agendas because you have a really crappy hand, and you're trying to confuse the Netrunner. And I think that's where I know Dave is having a very disgruntled time playing Netrunner. And I do think it takes a little while to get used to that you're not playing a green deck versus a black deck, and the 2 things are equal powered. Okay. So I think that's what's challenging certain people. Now, to Dave's defense, though, I watched him play 3 games, and he got creamed each time. And I think what happened was he was playing one of the starter decks that, for whatever reason, was not balanced against a different runner starter deck. So I think he had a weird matchup there.
So the starter decks aren't all balanced, what you're saying?
Right. I think that there's a problem. I haven't Google search this on the web, but what they do with the starter decks is they number the cards, 1 through 800. And so they'll say, to make corporate deck number 1, or called the House of Russ Wakeland, use cards 82 through 105. And so he had a built deck that, for whatever reason, was not the yin to the yang of the other runner deck, and he just got spanked like 3 times in a row. Wow. Nothing he can do. Matt later kind of admitted that he was playing an advanced starter deck. So apparently in the rule book it said, now if you want to play a little bit more of an advanced starter deck, do this one. And I think it was an advanced runner deck versus a very simple corp deck. So I'm not accepting Dave's Ruminations, and he'll give it another go around too.
Yep.
But if people are having bad experiences, I wonder if it's because they're playing with one of the Corp decks, which is not really built that well.
Could be. So what you're basically saying, as an old Netrunner fan, you're happy of the new version of Netrunner. And
Yep.
if someone else has fond memories of Netrunner, they'll be happy with this new purchase.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. It plays the same. There wasn't anything annoying, like going, oh man, they took that away.
Right.
Instead, I could practically play from remembering 10 years ago without, even barely needing to read the rules.
Nice.
It plays the same way.
Well, that's good news.
And I like it. I like that. What's the word I'm looking for, Russ? Not disparate, but what is it when one side's not equal to the other?
Asymmetric.
Yes, thank you. Asymmetric. That's the word I was looking for. Yep. I think it's asymmetric, and I think that's fun. How many times do we play an asymmetric game?
No, there's not that many. I mean, there's some, and I do like it when they do it and it's balanced. I'm thinking of the Ares project's a great example where they're totally different, but it's still you can win with different sides. So it's nice when they do it right.
One more thing about Netrunner. This reminds me. Russ, remember how fun it was when we were first learning War Machine and you made that really bold move to kill the caster and you pulled it off?
Yeah, is that possible in Netrunner?
That's what Netrunner feels like.
Yeah. See,
You're the runner. You have to make a really bold move.
I think there's types of gamers that like that ability and types of gamers that don't. And I think
Right.
sometimes you get,
So I think if you're a person who's like, I hate War Machine, then I can play the whole game and my Warcaster dies and it's done. Well, you might not like Netrunner then.
Checkers versus chess, right? I want to be able to kill your king, or I want you to have to kill all my pieces before I can lose. It's that kind of thing. I got it. All right, cool. How about what's this next one on your list, Joe?
All right, the next one is Settlers of Kandamir.
Now that sounds like cashmere to me, which sounds like something about sweaters. So
And I think I'll save that for talking in a later section. But I just wanted to put it out there that it's a Mayfair game. It's in the Catan mythos.
Milieu.
Yes, milieu. I do not prefer Settlers of Catan. I find it boring, and I don't like that other people can block me what I want to do by just going,
This is all seemingly very familiar to me.
It is familiar.
In a futuristic sort of
oh
way.
yes, because we talked about it. Yes, I now remember. Yes,
It
we'll say
is,
that
and I'm
for
not
later.
going to spend too much time with it
All
other
right.
than just to say that I want people to be aware of it.
Okay. All right.
The other one is, have you guys played Infiltration?
I have. I played it when it first came out, and I really enjoyed it. Actually.
I really like
Yeah,
it.
it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a game. I haven't played it post-Gen Con, so I'm breaking the rules a little bit, but I want to put that out there that I thought that was a great game. And I want to talk about X-Wing.
Okay.
I want to hear what you guys, when you guys talk about it. So I saw it at Gen Con. It was awesome on the Destroyer, on the Death Star table. The models are unbelievable. I want to buy the game just to own the freaking
I know, right? The models are crazy.
Yep. But I have to admit that I'm a little hesitant with the rules because this is how I remember playing Wings of War. I remember going in my head, oh, shoot, that's a miss. Nope, no line of sight there. Oh, where's Russ going? Oh, he's way over there. How do I do that? What is that, a double reverse barrel roll? Oh, that's fun to do. You get my point. Never hitting anything.
Now, have
never
you tried
shooting
X-Wing yet? You
Nope.
played it? Oh, I see. So, well, we did actually just review it in episode 110, actually. And we played it quite a bit. And I think for some reason, Craig and I both felt that it plays much faster than Wings of War. There's less fiddling about.
Yeah.
And we weren't really able to put our finger on exactly what it is. I don't know if it's the templates and the dials make it faster, or the templates are just bigger so you can cover more distance in one move, or if the combat is more decisive and deadly. I don't know what it is. But it definitely plays faster to me and feels like Star Wars. But that said, it's still a hidden movement flight game. And if you don't like those,
Right.
it still is what it is.
Nothing's going to change its genre.
Right.
Is it just sort of fly, shoot? Oh, I blew you up. Oh, because I've heard, no, there's kind of different characters.
Well, there's first of all much more in-depth missions, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
And second of all,
it's one of those games which I think is almost all games that benefits from missions rather than just kill each other.
and you can kit your planes out now. So you do pick which pilot's in there. You can also add equipment, like which droids are being loaded in there, which missiles are being armed. So there's a lot more flexibility and options before the game and then during the game as well. So it's a little more deep than Wings of War. By quite a
So
bit more
the
deep.
X-Wing, do you guys review it? Isn't that the Norbert episode?
No, it's the Gen Con. It's the last.
Oh, so
it was
maybe I'm
second
behind
half of
by
the
one
Gen
or
It's
something.
the second half of
episode.
the Gen Con episode, right?
Okay.
Played by Mob One, the one that just 110.
All right. I thought he was under 10. Okay. Anyway, so I'll listen to that and hear how it
There
played.
you go.
Play by play.
All right, but achievement for
So
that.
I think that's pretty much it.
All right.
Cool.
Greg, you wanna
Russ,
go-
how about yourself?
Okay. Well, I just played the Doctor Who the card game. Nicole picked this up at Gen Con, and I wasn't sure to think about it. Now, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and so is Nicole. So we really wanted to try it out. And I do love the artwork. So they didn't just take shots of the show and stick them on the cards. They could have, but instead they actually have it's drawings of all the characters, very stylized. You can definitely tell it's the Matt Smith version of the Doctor and Amy Pond and all the people that are common characters in the current series are in there. It looks great, though. The art style is really, really nice. And the mechanics are pretty simple. And what's interesting about it is I think it feels, some people have said it doesn't feel a lot like Doctor Who. I think it feels like it when you're playing it. What's interesting about it, though, is there's one mechanic, because it's a card game, right? But at the end of your turn, you must pass. You have to play cards from your hand as actions, right, during your turn. You can basically play as much as you like, except that at the end of your turn, you must have 3 cards left in your hand because you must pass them to the person on your right. Now, this is interesting for 2 reasons. One, you want to use all the cards that make the best abilities for you right now, and then pass the rest of them, and just so you're trying to build a discard hand. At the same time, though, if you can't use something really good, you're also giving it to another player. So you're like, oh, I'm giving this person this really powerful guy. I can't use him now, but I don't want to. So you're kind of forced to make these really tough decisions about not only which card should I best play, but also what should I use even if it's not the best play for me, so someone else doesn't get their hands on this card, even though it may not work for me right now. So that's an interesting mechanic, and I really liked it. I don't see it in a lot of card games. But overall, I thought it was fun. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you should definitely check it out. It's not out yet. I think it comes out next month, but they had some for sale at Gen Con. Also, here's an oldie but a questionably goodie. I played Mystery Express.
This pops up every now and then.
Now, this game was universally pretty much hated by our gamer friends. But I kept my copy. Actually, Ian gave me his copy, so I kept it.
Which tells you how much it's hated.
Right. Because my mother-in-law is a huge, murder mystery / Clue fan. And so finally I got it to the table with her over Labor Day weekend. We were warming the grill up and said, hey, I got this game for you to try. And, it's a pretty, for someone who's used to card games and bridge and stuff, it's a pretty, in-depth board game. But at the same time, she got right into it, and she had a blast. And after we're done playing it, she's like, I want to play that again next time I come over. So big hit. If you know someone who likes deductive reasoning games, I think it's a good theme, great components, a good game for that. It won't be a hit with all your gamer friends, but it might be a hit with people who like those kind of things. So I'd
rather play that game that Craig picked up for that slot.
What's that?
A gaming slot.
Mystery of the Abbey?
No. Craig, what is it in the little tin? Timeline?
Timeline?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Timeline's not a deductive reasoning game.
No, I'm just saying for that type of sort of gamer slot. Like how we talk about filler games and
Mystery Express
it's
is
like a
not
small game. And,
yeah, Mystery Express is not a filler game. It's
No.
It's a 2-hour board game like Clue, but
I didn't know it took that long. Okay, never mind.
It's a pretty meaty game.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely.
Let's see. Also played Dungeon Command again. I think I talked about Dungeon Command once before a while ago, but I played it again with Ryan. So Dungeon Command is sort of interesting. It's a new set of box sets coming out from the D&D guys, Wizards. It has the boxes are interesting. They come with a bunch of pre-painted models that are compatible with Wrath of Shardalon and Ravenloft and all those games. But it's a standalone game, and now you really technically need 2 boxes to play. In addition to the models, also comes in there is tiles. They're double-sided. One side looks like you're inside of a dungeon with a grid on it. The other side looks like you're in a outdoors area with a grid on it. And it comes with cards. Now, it also comes with a deck of cards that has the rules for each of these creatures being a monster in one of your D&D dungeon games. So you can use all these pre-painted models now in your dungeon games as an expansion, which is fun. But it's really designed to be a 2-player game, and it's basically Magic the Gathering meets Dungeons and Dragons. Because basically what you are playing an overlord person, and because it's Wizards, it's got all the terms in it. It's got tapping, it's got a stack, it's got all the normal magic stuff. But instead of summoning a creature to the middle of the table, you're summoning creatures into the dungeon itself, and you're using a model to represent the creature. When they fight, it's very much... There's no dice rolling. So this creature does 5 points of damage. You take 5 points of damage unless you've got armor.
That sounds fun.
And it's just straight up. It's pretty cool, pretty tactical. I like it.
I'm sensing a butt.
If there weren't other options like Mage Wars, I think Mage Wars is a better implementation of this idea. This is still a cool buy, though, if you are a fan of the other games, because you got it's a game you can play by yourself, but also you got this expansion of and the pre-painted models actually look really good. They did a good job with them. So you might like it, but I think there's a better job of this sort of like idea of 2 uber characters fighting each other with summoned creatures in the middle, and that is Mage Wars. More about
Mage Wars the one that everybody was also talking about at Gen Con?
Yes.
And apparently it's not out yet, because I don't see any of you guys have played it yet.
Well, Craig and I did play it.
Several people have copies they got at Gen Con because it was sold out. Yeah, Dave got one on day one.
Yeah, and the designers came up. We talked about this a couple episodes too. The designers came up and demoed the game for us. And I know
that was that
like,
game that got demoed. Okay,
Yeah,
I get
we-
that confused with Summoner Wars.
No, the Summoner Wars is also
That was
awesome.
played last night, so it confused me.
And and it's funny because people compare Mage Wars to Summoner Wars. I don't think they're the same game. Summoner Wars is faster and just feels very different to me for some reason. It's more tactical. Your exact position on the board matters. I think Dungeon Command and Mage Wars are closer to being the same game in me. I don't know why I feel that way, but I just do.
I think it was seeing Summoner Wars
that's
last
useful
night. I
to
got
the
confused.
listener.
I don't. Yeah, it's just how I.
I don't
feel
know
about
why I think that.
it. I
but
don't know why I think that. I just do. It's kind of like the whole Imperium thing.
I know it when I see it.
Right. Speaking of Imperium, I played X-Wing 4 times.
I see what you did.
I played with Ryan, Randy, and Nicole. Everyone universally really enjoyed it. I really like this game. I like every scenario. I like all the options of building your ships. I need more ships. Please send them to me now.
Right.
Is basically where
Do you
I'm
think
sitting.
the Imperium outbalances power-wise the Rebels? That
No,
seems to be
actually,
another complaint I've seen.
We had our first Imperial win. Actually, if the Rebel players knows what they're doing, the Rebel player has better pilots.
Yeah.
And another tip to you Rebel players out there, read the frickin' mission first. The rules clearly state you pick your mission. If you're going on a defense mission and you don't have bigs in your list, you're just asking to lose.
Yeah.
If you go into a mission with bigs in your list, the Imperial player's got a long mountain to climb.
Yeah.
Because basically Big's deal is if he's within one of a target, you have to shoot bigs instead of anything else. So if
He's
you're
like
on
a tank, right?
If you're on a shuttle escort mission or anything else like that, throw bigs in there, and now it's going to be a tough fight. And also, if you're in that mission where
That's 2 out of the 3 currently available missions.
also there's a mission where you get to pick which of your ships is disabled, and what you want to have in that mission is you want to have bigs defending the disabled ship, and you want the disabled ship to be a Y-wing, which has 3 shields and 5 hull. Now the Imperial player's got a really heck of a battle also. By the way, I've lost that mission, but I've also won it as many times as I've lost it doing that. So it's very close. We've had it down to the wire usually when we're playing. So you really have to, it's like a miniature game. You really have to build your list properly to the mission. If you don't, you will lose.
Oh, okay.
And that's what makes it tough out of the box. Probably out of the box, which is playing with the 3 ships in the box, it may be tougher to balance the missions that way.
Okay. So you need to get some stuff beyond the
I
box.
think you do to
You
have it really
absolutely
be
do.
interesting. I think so, yeah.
What's
In
the start
fact,
like?
not to be a fanboy, but I think 2 starter boxes and at least 2 of each of the, or no, one expansion X-Wing and 1 expansion TIE fighter to get those extra bonus pilots, and then 2 Y-Wings and 2 advanced TIEs, I think, are like a really good, if you want to be able to provide both sides for a really solid game, that's what you need.
Actually, yeah, folks are accessing this on DACA, so it's a good question, Rafe. What I walked out of Gen Con with was I had one of everything. So I had the starter box plus 1 of each expansion. So that
what are
gives
the
me
expansions?
Well, there's an X-Wing expansion, which gives you Wedge Antilles, so you definitely want that, because in the box, loot comes in there. So that gives me 2
Are these like
X-Wings.
little minis that fit inside, or are they just
Well,
cards?
each-
No, it's a card that
expansion
changes.
Well, each expansion comes with a ship and a set of cards that are new pilots. The pilots are just defined by a card. The ship doesn't change.
That's what I meant. The cards. yeah.
So I've got that, and then I've got the TIE Advance, which gives you Vader and some other choices. Then I've got the
But you
TIE
get one model, but a bunch of different pilots.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And you get different pilots that are in the base game. So you will not have Wedge if you don't get the X-Wing expansion. So if you bought 2 base games, you'd have 2 X-Wings, but you wouldn't have Wedge. That kind of thing. Then also I got the TIE Fighter expansion and the Y-Wing expansion. So I have 1 of everything. That's not enough to even really play 100 versus 100 points because there's not enough Imperial stuff. Right. So I can really only play 60 versus 60 or 70, around 70 points aside. The book recommends 100
Why
points
isn't
aside.
that just fun?
It is fun. It's great. Don't get me wrong. But the game's like, you should play 100 points aside. Of course you want to because that's how you roll. So I really want to get to, plus I don't have enough stuff to really mix it up. There's really only a couple options I have to make it work. So I'm really looking forward to, I already pre-ordered from Myriad 1 of everything before I even went to Gen Con. So I'm going to end up with 2 of
he's
everything.
going to have 2 of everything.
Right. So it's all good. And I think, again, as a miniature gamer, this price point is still really affordable for what you're getting, I think. And as a board gamer, it's crazy expensive.
So just to rewind, because it's still a little confusing when you talk about the thing. So you get the starter box set, you get the X-Wing expansion, the Y-Wing expansion, the TIE Fighter expansion, and what's the Vader one?
the TIE Advanced, which is
TIE Advanced
which is-
expansion.
And that's going to leave you still needing stuff.
Yeah, but
Wow, and
that's
to play 2 players though.
To provide everything you need for 2 players.
You can play
yes.
2 players out of the box, but I do think that'll get dull after a while. You want the more
What
ships.
if you're like, nope, I don't care about the Rebels. I just want to play Imperium.
Well, that's great as long as you have a Rebel friend. Then all you really need is the box for the components plus the
And then you get the
the 2 TIE expansions, right?
Yeah.
That's it though. You wouldn't need like 2.
You probably want to get 2 TIE Advances because it's really fun to play. I think the optimum Imperial fleet is 2 TIE Advanced, each escorted by 2 TIE Fighters.
That is a beautiful
That's
slate.
a nice. It actually, A, it looks great on the table, and B,
And it sounds like there's some swappability with the pilot cards.
oh yeah, that's what
So
makes the
my
points
two TIE
refinable.
fighters and two TIE Fighter Advance might be different than yours because of all the pilot cards.
Yes, because you can only have Vader on the
starting
table.
to get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And there's like you'll get like a TIE pilot who's fresh out of the academy, or you might have a TIE pilot from Obsidian Squadron, who, if you read the books, you know who that is. But in any case, they're slightly better. And then there's different famous TIE. And then there's like
That sounds kinda
Backstabber.
interesting.
Backstabber's a named TIE fighter pilot. He happens to be one of the wingmen with Vader in Battle of Yavin. He's got a cool ability. When he's close to the enemy, if he's in their back arc, he gets bonus damage dice. So there's things like that. There's like little special rules like that.
And are these out to buy now?
Yes, all the ones we mentioned are out to buy, and then coming by end of the year is the TIE Interceptor, the A-Wing, the Millennium Falcon, and Slave One. All coming
The
up.
Millennium Falcon looked
I
unbelievable.
know, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's looking awesome. I know we keep gushing about this game, and I know no one else can buy it, and we know you're frustrated, but yes, it's awesome. Go
Why
get it
can
when
no
you
one else buy it?
because it's not in stores until September sometime. Probably by the time you hear the show.
That's
Pretty
what I
soon.
meant. That's what I just asked.
Yeah, so
Okay, so
hopefully
you got to
soon.
wait a couple more weeks, and then you
Yeah,
can.
yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
soon. Whew, that's X-Wing, and that game is awesome still. Sorry. Oh, then also
What's this?
Zombie Side. I love the Zombie Side. Zombie Side is fast becoming one of my favorite games. Played a couple more times and played with Randy and Brian, and we got our butts kicked a few times. And then finally we played, the three of us. I think Zombie Side is quite possibly the best three-player game ever invented by man. It is a great three-player game because you each control two heroes. It's just balanced enough where the turn order control, we really got to review this game. It's so good. Is great, but most cinematic ending ever. We were totally losing. We were totally getting wiped out. Zombies are coming out everywhere. We should have been dead for all intents and purposes. Half our party's about to die. We got one chick going in there, getting the last objective. She dies horribly. Then the one character, he jumps in his car. He's yelling, "Let's go!" He drives down the street, literally runs over 30 zombies in one turn. Brap! His little meter
Cool.
goes all the way to pegged. He
Is this a board game, a
Yes,
card game?
It's a board game. It's a board. This is the Kickstarter game that literally comes with about 70 zombie models, right?
Yeah.
And then if
Does
you
it for everybody or only if you kickstart?
so what it is I'd have to look it up. When we review it, I'll get all the information. But basically, in the box, you get 2 trays of zombies plus 6 heroes in the normal box when you buy it off the shelf.
yeah.
And I think it's hitting store shelves soon. But if you got in the normal box price, I think is $80. I think is the price point. But if you supported it and Kickstarter at the Abomination level, which is what I did, and pretty much everybody did, you get 3 bonus heroes, their cards, and the models. But you also get another whole tray of zombies. So you basically get a third more zombie models. But the game mechanics are brilliant because as the zombies keep coming, if all the zombie models are on the table, and you flip a spawn card of a particular type, and let's say you're all out of regular shambling zombies, the zombies of that type then get an extra turn because you can't put any more on the table. So if you have
Is
more
this co-op, you versus them?
Yes, it's completely co-op. There's no adversarial component at all. It's very much Left 4 Dead. There's 3 different types of zombies. There's the slow shamblers, there's the runners, and then there's the big, heavy tank. They're called fatties. And then there's the Armageddon Apocalypse. I can't remember what he's called. He's the big dude, this huge zombie that's basically indestructible unless you build him all a tough cocktail.
And what makes you, in a nutshell, what makes you want to play this versus Last Night on Earth by Flying Frog?
Well,
Or
it's
is
the
it kinda
mechanics.
similar, or-
It's the mechanics, really. It's the fact that it's co-op. The zombies work in interesting ways. The game plays very fast. It's very, very challenging. And the way
Okay.
gear and equipment works is really, really good. We have to review this game. It is a wonderful, wonderful game. It's a fantastic co-op game. It's a great zombie game.
You get to customize your characters a little bit or pick up guns and
They
stuff
do
like
exactly
that?
right. Yeah. So each character has a special ability.
Okay, that
and
sounds fun.
Each character has a meter on them, and as you kill zombies, your meter goes up 1 for every kill you get, and that's good because it moves into different colors. And as you change colors, your character levels up and gains more abilities.
okay.
And there's an ability tree, so you can choose which ability your character is going to get. And there's also equipment. Your character can carry a bunch of equipment. And the thing that's scary is if a zombie hits you, he steals a piece of equipment. You have to give him something. So unless you're carrying extra crap you don't need, he will steal your one and only SMG. You're like, oh no. And you also take a wound card, which is bad.
Okay, that sounds fun.
But the thing that's nasty is as your character levels up and you move into the different colors, which give you more abilities, the zombies spawn, each of the spawn cards have different effects depending on what the highest level of any character on the table is at the moment. So as you get more powerful, so some character hits the next level, he's like, yeah, I'm now level 3 or whatever it is. The zombies are now spawning at level 3, but also like, oh crap, I'm only at level 2. Don't kill any more zombies. I got to level up. So it gets this very much sort of this little, you got to keep up and you got to move around. If you ignore zombies and don't kill them, you'll run out of models and they'll move faster. If you do kill a lot of zombies, you'll level up faster. So you better make sure you're distributing your kills evenly, but then it means they're spawning even more. It's just a really nice balancing act of mechanics. Really great.
Oh, cool.
And it looks fantastic because the models are all awesome. So I've gushed enough about Zombie Side. Can't recommend it highly enough. If you see it on the shelf, just pick it up if you like zombies, period. Done.
Okay.
Another happy find of mine at Gen Con was High Noon Saloon.
I think I saw this.
Now, I am a huge fan of cowboy games, as everybody knows. And High Noon Saloon is by the same guys who make the Red Dragon Inn game. You know, the game where you play basically the adventurers after their adventure at the tavern. So High Noon Saloon is the same sort of thing. You basically, little tiny board, micro board, that represents a saloon. And each person has a token, which is their cowboy. And you basically have a hand of cards, which basically becomes equipment. And you basically just hop around the room attacking people in different ways. Like, I'll smash you with a chair. I'm going to shoot you with a shotgun. I'm going to hide behind the bar, drink some beer, and heal up. You know, that kind of thing just happens. And it's back and forth. Handles up to 6 players, which is nice. And it has a team mode. So if you have enough players, you can actually play team versus team. And there's some nice cards in there that do different team things. Like, I'll toss you my gun and all kinds of cool stuff. It's a fun little fast-playing cowboy fighting game. I really, really enjoy it also. And it's a happy addition to my small but stout cowboy game
collection.
I know,
games.
which is not very many games. Not many cowboy games out there. Oh, and finally, another game I got at Gen Con was Cortex. One of our listeners happened to be in the D6G event there, and he handed us this one to check out. And Cortex is a very simple tile laying abstract game. And basically, each player gets a little screen, and there's a bunch of tiles in a bag, and you pick out some tiles, and then on the board there's some tiles, and you're trying to match the corners, right? So the tiles are white with different partial quarter symbols in each corner. So there's like a half of a blue circle and half of a yellow star and half of a triangle. So when you put all 4 pieces together, you'll get a symbol in the corner of all those pieces that comes together. Does that make sense? And you get a symbol.
Yeah.
So you're trying to
with abstract games.
So when you get a symbol built, you get then a token that matches that symbol from the piles of tokens, and that's going to be your scoring at the end of the game. But here's what's interesting. So you just go around the table, each person puts a tile down. Whoever gets the score, completes the shape, gets a coin that matches it. Now, there's coins for each shape type. What's interesting is you get points at the end of the game for the shapes based on how many tokens are left. So what that basically means is if not many people formed star shapes, and you're the only one that did, there'll be more star shapes left, so stars will be worth more points at the end. It's kind of interesting. So you're trying to score people that it's very kind of hard to explain. Very simple game.
I don't get it.
Kids liked it. It was fun. So Cortex, if you like those quirky abstract games, check that out.
Okay. Abstract games, Cortex.
All right. That's my long list of games played since Gen Con. Craig, how about you, man?
Right. Well, I played Evil Baby Orphanage 4 times since we came home.
That's a fun game.
It remains a really fun filler game. It's a little bit longer than most filler games if you play with a lot of people, but we played a game with 3 people last night, and it went very quickly.
Yes, games where it can go really fast, which seems to be fun.
Yeah, I think it's a very fun game if everybody's playing fast, and it's not quite as much fun if everybody's trying to take it seriously.
Yes.
Timeline remains. I've played that 5 times since Gen Con. A lot of fun. What's that?
What a hit!
Yeah, it takes 5 to 10 minutes to play, so it's really easy to rack up the plays. Actually, all you got to do is take the cards out and you play through the cards once, and that actually equals like 3 or 4 games. So,
nice.
And that's still fun. I played X-Wing 3 times. I am loving it for all the reasons that Russ has already delineated. We played a mega battle last night, actually.
Ooh, how many points?
200 points on a side.
Wow.
And 4 players on a side. So most of us had 1 ship each and kind of totally loaded it out. I had Wedge with all of the cool stuff, R2-D2, of course. And we played the mission number 3, which is the only mission where the Imperial ships are actually on the offensive, they're still on the offensive, but they're trying to find all these satellites and kind of scan the satellites and then get the information off the board.
Yeah, that's an interesting mission because the rebels are without number in that mission. They keep coming back.
Exactly, and it's also very cool because they're swarming in, but they have to. They care more about surviving and getting off the board than killing you. So all of a sudden, you see all kinds of evasion actions going off all over the place, and so. Excuse me.
You guys looked like while you were recovering, you guys looked like you just were having fun. I've never seen that many people standing around a table. It's hard to play a multiplayer miniature game, and it didn't seem to be lacking of too much boredom for people like waiting for another turn to execute.
Such a fast-paced game, and because of the way initiative works and the way, and because movement is in one direction and firing is in other direction, initiative-wise. So you never feel like you're always going last or you've got a lot of lag time. So it's a really fun game that sort of actually lends itself very, very well to a big group playing it.
Now, how
I
long
might
did
have just been sold. I'm sold on it.
how long did the game take to play?
We didn't finish it, but we only played for like an hour.
Oh, that's
Like an hour and a half, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
you
it was
finished
very
with the store
close.
closed.
That's true. It was very. The Imperial guys were very close to scanning the last couple of satellites. At which point all they had to do is get one of their ridiculously fast TIE fighters off the board.
Nice.
So that was awesome. I have played the ever living heck out of Spartacus
Yay.
5 times recently because what happened is,
You're a freak.
and I'll talk about this when we review it. The first few times you play, it feels like it's going to be a slow game. And all of a sudden, it clicks with your group. And all of a sudden, games that were taking an hour to 2 hours are taking 45 minutes or less.
Wow.
And that's what's been happening. All of us. Last week, we went through 2 full games in about an hour and 15 minutes.
From what starting?
From starting at 7.
Wow. Okay. Yep.
So, and that's what they say. Start at 7 for a quick game.
Right.
And we were thinking an hour and a half to 2 hours was a quick game. And
I know you're going to get into it, but what is starting at 7, Craig? Is it a place? or-
we're going to get into it.
We'll get into it later.
Influence. It's your
okay.
influence or
It's
your
some sort of
victory
level.
points. So it's
Okay.
between 1 and 12 is where you are.
Okay.
And they recommend 3 different starting places, and 7 is the highest, and that's if you want a quick game.
Gotcha.
And 12 is winning. So
Nice.
so that was awesome. And I actually played a game of Malifaux with old Andy also and found it very frustrating and didn't have a lot of fun and didn't like the game and then realized that I was about 40 points or 40% down on the force I was supposed to be fielding.
Holy cow, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it.
It was ridiculous. I went home and I was like, I can't believe I just didn't have anything I needed. And he totally outmaneuvered me because he had more guy. Wait a minute. I was supposed to have 2 of those and I only fielded 1. Well, that's nobody's fault but my own. So
What list did you run?
I still have my outcasts is what I've been running because those are the ones I have built and painted and I'm used to. So I'm working on my 10 Thunders, hoping desperately that I get a little box in the mail, but thinking I probably won't. And excuse me. And so I'll be using those until I get the new models in that I need.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I liked the game, and then all of a sudden I just got really frustrated and upset because it felt like I was just being like totally crushed, and I was because I was missing one whole person, and when you're only playing with 4 or 5 people,
Yeah, that's
a big deal.
huge.
Yeah, that's not good. You can't really do that to yourself.
No. So that was those were my games over the last.
So
couple
where did you
weeks.
play when you discovered that?
It's weird that you should ask that, Russ, and that was very organic of you. I played at Myriad Games, and Myriad, of course, is a sponsor of this show on behalf of friendly professional gaming stores everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I
You
was
wanna
awesome.
Probably check out their new upgraded MVP memberships at myriad.com/MVP, which are, of course, memberships that you recharge every month for Myriad money, MVP points, and MVP rewards.
I just used all my MVP points to buy a full terrain set of terrain for my terrain table. I used terrain for
I don't think you could have said terrain in that
for my
sentence
daughter, yeah,
before
because now
time.
I need to build a table for my daughter. So I'll just segue into modeling here and say that now that my daughter started collecting her circle and we're painting up models, I needed a place to play. So at Myriad they had one of the hard to find now, very rare and highly coveted Games Workshop grass mats. So I acquired one of those.
Those are hard to find. Good.
Yeah, and then I got a bunch of the Gale Force 9 terrain, and I got the trees and some hills, and so I'm ready to go. And she's having a blast painting her models. We sat down, we had a nice big family painting morning on Sundays. It's becoming painting morning, and she's been working on her circle. We primed and built the model. She had a great time putting them together. It's funny. I haven't really seen, because all my starter kits come from pre-plastics, so I haven't had the opportunity to really look at one of the new plastic starter kits. I have to say they're fantastic from Privateer. The circle starter kit's wonderful. The models are just as detailed, and they go together so easily. It's very, very clear. And so she was carefully dry fitting them all. I think we had to file 2 little things, and I showed her how to file, and we assembled them all, and then I primed them for her because priming is still kind of dangerous. And then the next day we started painting, and she had a wonderful time painting up her first dog. She got them all painted up, and she's all excited to do dry brushing and everything. And so now we're working on the second one, and she doesn't want to play till they're all painted. So teaching her right.
Very good.
So she's having a great time with it. And her little sister didn't want to be left out, so I have her painting all the guys from Super Dungeon Explorer. So she's painting the heroes up from that game.
Very nice.
So yes, we had a great time with that. I'm working on, meanwhile, to paint along with them.
Painting.
I'm painting up Jeremiah Cray, who's
Nicole.
What's that? Nicole's not painting anything.
Oh,
That's not her thing.
I was
But-
picturing that you all sitting around having
No, it's daddy girls time. So we're sitting there doing our little daddy daughter time.
coffee or something.
No, she's in the other room doing something, reading a book or whatever. So it was a lot of fun. We were very happy with that going on, and she's very excited to play the game. And I'm working on Jeremiah Cray, I think I mentioned. So yeah, I'm excited to get him built. So very much excited to get into War Machine. And then a weird little thing, Ryan, our friend, is all inspired to play Circle now because Rose is playing it. Oh, and I have to shout out to Dana, our War Machine player at Myriad Games. He was awesome. We came in, I brought Rose in to get her starter set. She was so excited. And she's hugging it, walking around the store. She's got her little starter set. And Dana and some of the guys are playing in the back. And so we went back there, and he's like, oh, I see you got the circle set. You want to see my... And he has everything. He's got the gargantuan. He's got like the whole line of circles all painted. And he's taking it all out so she can see it. They were such good guys there, just so welcoming to this little girl, and showing them their stuff. And it was just really nice to see the gaming community, helping the new blood, if you will, get into the game. And it was really, really wonderful to see. So thanks to him and all the friends who showed that stuff to her. She was just really, she came on. She was so nice to those guys to show me their stuff. I can't wait to have a collection as big as, that stuff. So it was really wonderful. And she's having a great time with it. So far, so good on the modeling front with the kids.
I did the same with my Myriad MVP points. Is I bought Vlad on a horse, Russ.
Hey, nice.
Yeah. So with the imminent return of Tuesday Night Gaming, I'm looking forward to some Russ and Rafe battles.
Oh, me too.
Get
Hey,
some Signar versus Kador going on.
I'm even more excited. Did you see Matt Wilson's blog about a couple weeks ago? He blogged that he was working on a new sculpt for Stryker, and he blurted out that it was Stryker on a horse.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so Stryker probably not out till next spring, but I'll be ready. I'll be ready for you. But that's why I'm working on Cray.
I just saw today something that's kind of bad news for the Monster Apocalypse movie.
What's that?
It's a movie called Pacific Rim,
Oh,
which is a futuristic movie where a bunch of giant monsters suddenly erupt from the center of the earth and start destroying all of mankind, and the only defense is a bunch of giant robots that are built to fight them.
well, kaiju's kaiju, right? What do you got?
Yeah, it's kaiju all the way. It actually even uses the word kaiju in the movie.
Well, there you go.
The poster looks awesome though.
Well, I love that you
I,
got Vlad there, Rafe. I can't wait to flip face.
I've got this weird thing going on where I'm really enjoying Malifaux, but it's making me want to play War Machine. Like, I don't know if you guys ever have that type of situation going on. I think probably because War Machine was one of my first loves for that level or that kind of, I don't even want to call it the same genre. But anyway, it's probably just because I miss Vlad and I miss Kador and I just haven't played War Machine or Circle in such a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. For my modeling, I've been pretty busy on that. I based my whole Malifaux crew plus Sam Hopkins, put them on my specialty bases. I want to give a shout out to the new Malifaux deck. I don't know what it's called, but it's the one where it's kind of like a lot of people were using the Puppeteer deck,
Right.
But that was for the Puppeteer game, but they were using it for their Malifaux games, and then Weird came out and said, hey, we're going to give you guys your own deck. So it's got that old, like, weathered look, but it's got that, I don't know, what would you call it, Craig? Vinyl or...
It's weird. It's slippery.
Slippery, but it protects your cards, so you don't have to have them in card sleeves. And the
but
suits...
it's slippery. That's the one word I would use to describe them as slippery.
No, they've got a little bit of grip. They're not the super... I don't find them...
I can't shuffle them without them exploding all over
Oh,
the
really?
tables.
Yeah. You gotta be a magician like me. You know how to handle a deck
Yeah,
of
there
cards.
you go. That'll probably help.
Like
But the other thing that's cool is, the rams, the suits are like little rams, and so 11. There's 11 rams and 11 masks and stuff. So that's a great purchase. I'm glad I bought that. And this is it's a little more tough than I thought, man. So I built Mysterious, the Gen Con model, and she's really cool.
Yep.
But she was tough to build.
Yeah, I was
There
worried
was
about
a
that.
lot of little teeny parts to glue on there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's tough. The plastics are that small of a bit. It's tough to cut them off the sprue, right? Because there's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm looking
That
at her.
was a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the point where, like, don't have too much coffee that day, and like I got to the point where I actually got mad
Oh, wow.
because I couldn't glue the foot on, or the way I
Hey,
wanted anyway.
I'm gonna jump in here and take one of
Yeah,
my modeling
please.
things too, because I tried to build all of my 10 Thunders plastic models that I got at Gen Con and found the same, like, tiny, like the size of a freckle a bit.
Yes.
that
And we're not
literally I
exaggerating.
didn't even recognize as a bit until I was putting it together and went, crap, this guy has no feet. Oh my God, there are his
We're
feet right
talking
there.
like these are purity seals that you can choose to leave off.
No, and so that was it's very, very frustrating to me, and I think it goes along with what we've been saying all along, that Malifaux is not for beginning modelers.
No.
But I think the plastics take it to a whole new level, and they don't have any instructions,
Right.
which I think is really, really problematic, to the point where the 10 Thunder archers that I was trying to put together, I gave up on, and that's the first time I've given up on putting together a model in maybe 20 years.
Wow.
Their heads are 4 different parts. And there's
Wow.
no instructions, and there's no, you can kind of tell, oh yeah, this guy kind of has an L-shaped tab, and this guy kind of has a round tab, and the pieces are so small, literally I could not hold them in my hands to try to dry fit them.
Wow.
And so I think something,
It was a challenge.
and I'm hearing that from a lot of folks, so I don't think it's just me losing my skills in my old age.
No, I didn't feel that
I
way.
think something needs to happen where there's some instructions online or something, or maybe a second run where the head is all one piece. Because what I felt was I was putting together pieces that could have easily all been one assembly.
Yes, I
And,
felt the same way.
yeah.
You know, and it's not on my bullet points here, and I haven't built one in a while, but, you know, contrast that with what Mantic's doing. And a lot of people, I love their Mantic dwarfs. A lot of people don't prefer the look, but nobody argues that it's feet to base, glued, hardly any flashing. You know, you stick the torso on top of the legs.
Yeah, I think
boom, you're
I
done.
think that's an extreme in the other direction.
It is, but I mean, that's
Well, but
But-
even like if you look at what Privateer's doing, there's no sprues. Everything's
Right.
pre-cut off. You just glue it together, and
Yes.
they're really detailed. I think there's not. I mean, I love weird. Don't get me wrong, but there's not really an excuse to have to work this hard. It shouldn't be this. I mean, I get it. It's an advanced model. I totally get it. But
Right.
you know, we've been doing this a long time, and it shouldn't be this. I look at it. I'm intimidated. The only reason I haven't put Mysterious together yet is I'm literally intimidated by the sprues. I figure if I clip just the slightest wrong angle, I'm either going to be filing for a month to get it right, or cutting off half her face.
That's the problem.
Right?
The freckle-sized feet for the Metal
right.
Gammon model, literally, yeah, absolutely.
Well, no,
you're right. You're
Well,
right.
Mysterious's
When
head
I
is the
flip-
size of like a pinhead.
It
Yes.
really, yeah.
You know, it's not even. I'm not even exaggerating.
And the hat glues on separately, and how are you supposed to get it up against the coffin?
Right. So it's
It's
just
not even folded in the
again,
back.
not
When I clipped the feet off the sprue, I clipped the pins that would have held it onto the legs.
Oh boy.
And there was no, in my mind, with my, maybe I'm losing my eyesight, there wasn't enough distinction
Right.
where the pins started or where the pins stopped and the sprue connection started.
Yeah.
And so it just looked like it was that's where it was connected to the sprue.
maybe
so I cut it
maybe
off.
there's a technique we don't know. So weird if you're listening. No, seriously, if you're listening, weird.
No, that's exactly how I was. I felt in the middle of doing
Right.
those archers that I had to be doing something wrong.
So if there's a
because-
technique weird, a YouTube video or something, just show us the secret, because this.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just
I
hard.
think I want to add, it's not more of a rant, but I think because we're miniature gamers, also it's plastics, so you're using the non-super glue. So it's not like you just put the foot in place and touch it and you're glued. It's not happening because you want to use that other kind of glue, which takes a little longer to set.
polystyrene.
I didn't have any issue with the glue.
Yeah,
I
the glue's
thought
not the
I
problem.
did.
For, yeah, I
glue
don't-
worked
I don't
great,
glue.
but and what do you? I mean, and not to pile on, but
Right.
I almost kind of feel like the detail is sort of soft. It's not the crisp detail that you get from the weird metals.
Mine look pretty good. My detail.
I was
pretty
okay
good.
with the detail in Mysterious.
Okay. Maybe it's just me.
I think
Maybe
you guys have a
it's
lot of flowing robes in those
Eh.
10 guys.
You know, no offense, but
It's you.
just kidding.
It's not me. It's you.
Freckles. So now we have Corey-sized cards and freckle-sized feet. It's perfect.
Right. Freckle
There
sized
you go.
feet.
It's a wonderful
Hey, I'll
gaming.
trademark those guys pretty
All
soon
right.
for you, okay?
Let's
Okay,
take a look
great.
at other here before we run out of time. So let's see.
Pass it out.
Oh, I'll just go.
first. Craig, go first.
Craig, go first. You go.
Okay, well, I'm going to steal Russ's and say we went and saw Iron Skies
We
as
did.
a big giant group of gamers, and man, was that movie way better than it has any right to be.
I know. Crazy, silly fun. Really. That's
it was
all
crazy, silly
what's
fun
Iron
with
Skies?
Nazis in space. It was awesome.
Oh,
Right.
cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
Google it because
I
we're running
missed
out
this
of
one.
time. But it was ridiculously fun. Gordon from Adler Hobbies.
Yes, thank you, Gordon, for a
local
wonderful
place. Put together this whole event and got them to come to a
And-
local theater. And
Guess who won the door prize? Oh, yeah.
Nicole-
My wife.
Nicole won the door
Right.
prize.
I won the entire dust. I got a whole dust starter set. Man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Gordon.
So
Nice
there was
pull.
that. I actually very excited. I put together a 40K campaign.
Yep.
And I got 5 other guys, and we started last night. We launched the campaign, built the tile map, and went through all of the preliminaries for round 1, so we know who everybody's fighting next week. So very excited to get 40K back to the table.
Hey, I have a book for you, by the way.
Yeah, a big giant
called
book.
the
I
rule
think I'm
book.
going to
You can have
spend
it.
$25 and get a smaller version.
No, you can have that.
Yeah, it's a big giant book. On my Kindle, I am still churning away at Team of Rivals, which has taken me longer than any book I've read since grad school, and continues to take forever. But unlike most books that would take forever at this point, I would have given up on them. I'm still really enjoying learning all about Lincoln and the guys that worked with him and the Civil War. It's pretty amazing stuff. And for Audible, I am listening to the second book in the Lieutenant Leary series by David Drake, Lieutenant Leary Commanding, which is getting better and better. And these are actually every Audible Lieutenant Leary book comes with, unfortunately, it's the same one, but it comes with a little preamble by David Drake where he explains how the publisher went to him one day and said, "I'm a huge fan of the Aubrey Maturin series of books that take place in the Age of Sail in the 1800s and British Navy. I want you to write something like that in space," and that's exactly what these books are.
Ooh, I got to check that out now.
So it's to the
Sold.
point where it's almost a little bit like, your language is a little too archaic for science fiction, but other than that, it's really good. The only unfortunate element is that this is one of those where I really feel like the reader is not matched well to the material because it's very swashbuckling and combat and all of these amazing, colorful characters, and the guy's kind of reading it like it's a bedtime story a little bit.
No.
Very laid back and low energy. So you would benefit from pulling a Russ and listening to it at 1.5 or 2 speed.
There you go.
And of course, you can get your free Audible book. How, Russ?
Ooh, well, you can go to the website and click on the Audible banner on the right-hand side, and that will take you to our Audible deal. And right now, the deal from Audible is you get a free 30-day trial subscription and a free Audible credit, which gives you basically one audiobook of your choice to keep forever. Even if you decide to cancel and not pay anything, you still get that free Audible book. Like, for example, I would recommend picking up Snow Crash, which I just finished. And Snow Crash was awesome. This book was fantastic. It was recommended to me again by Jericho, who, by the way, you should just ask Jericho for a book to read because he knows all the good ones, apparently. Snow Crash is basically like, it's kind of like Ready Player One meets, I don't know.
It's like the original Cyberpunk.
It's original, yeah. It came out in 1992. It's actually fairly old. I'm surprised I never read it, but it really, actually, it's also credited as being the book that inspired Second Life.
It's a very good book.
Fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. Snow Crash, great book. Also, so I really like that one. What are you reading for Audible, Rafe, before we go on? What is she
and I'm going to list a lot, and this is not over the past year. This is in the past 4 weeks. Not quite 2 weeks, but 4 weeks. I'm reading Leviathan Awakes, and that is I think I'm near the end, and I'm at the part where, and I'm not going to talk spoilers, I'm at the part where Miller and Holden are on Eros as Eros is speeding through space towards some destination.
Yeah.
And it's really good. And I'm reading a book called The Untethered Soul, which is kind of a yogi, like philosophy type of book, which I found to be really, really pretty awesome. I love those kind of books. That was on Audible. And on both Audible and reading, I read Entree Leadership by David Ramsey. And I know that, I'm working with this team now, and so this could be seen as biased, but I have to say, as far as leadership book goes, it was really good. Really good book. And I recommend it to anybody, whether you're in private business like me, or if you're in a company. There's lots of good chapters that'll apply to you. And that was awesome. That was read and also on Audible. Do you want me to keep going for my live action books too?
Well, sure. Yeah, go ahead, finish. Why don't you finish it?
Horatio and the Hotspur, Craig.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
good
burning
book.
through those, and I'm really just enjoying them, man.
Nice.
I love Horatio Hornblower, man. Freaking
Yeah, those
awesome.
are good books.
He's awesome.
And because I've been reading and doing all that stuff, even though there's a new expansion coming out for Latro, I have not been baking any pies.
Oh,
because
I
I've been
had the
reading all
pie
these
song
books.
all queued up. No pie song today.
No pies.
Oh, well.
And I bought and finished Bastion on the 360, which is an arcade
Ooh, good
download,
game.
and I highly
Good
recommend
game.
it to anybody.
Yeah, it's a good game. Little adventure platformer. Highly recommend
Yep.
that. That's a good one. Oh, by the way, also, if you're not an Xbox owner and you want to play Bastion, it just came out for iOS also, so check it out. So I'll do mine real quick here. Well, Craig already talked about Iron Skies. That movie was funny. Also, just found Legend of Korra for the kids. Now, for those of you who don't know, my daughters and I actually absolutely loved the Last Airbender cartoon series. Not that crazy movie.
That's good. No, the
The cartoon series is fantastic, and it's on Netflix. So if you want to go watch it, it's right there for you to watch. However, Legend of Korra is the brand new sequel. It takes place a generation after the events of The Last Airbender.
Okay.
And I've only seen, we just watched, it just came out on Xbox Video. It was aired on Nickelodeon this past spring and is now available on digital download from a variety of services, including Xbox. So we just watched the very first episode. I got to say, wow, is it good. First of all, the writing was great. The cartoon style, the animation style is still fantastic. But I really love the visual style. They've gotten even more steampunky. This takes place in the city now, and there's these steampunk dirigibles and these cool, very steampunk-looking cops and bad guys. Wow, the visuals are great. Really, really can't recommend this highly enough. Legend of Korra for your kids or even for you. I think anybody will enjoy it. It's a really good anime.
Okay.
Let's see. Also, talked about Snow Crash already. Oh, so my daughters, we do this thing now. We have movie night once a week, and so they pick what they're going to watch. Well, thanks to Lego stuff, they like they all the Lego games, right? They saw they play the Lego Indiana Jones. They want to see Indiana Jones. They play the Lego Star Wars. They saw Star Wars. Well, the Lego Lord of the Rings game is not out yet, but the Lego Lord of the Rings stuff has hit stores. So they're like, Dad, we want to see Lord of the Rings. Now, I thought long and hard about this because Lord of the Rings is pretty dark, right?
Yep. Some scary parts with Gollum and stuff.
So we finally let them watch them Fellowship of the Ring, and they really liked it, but the end was pretty dark, right? Because pretty much everybody, spoiler alert, everybody dies. So not everybody, but some couple main characters, you don't know if they're coming back or not, and they're, very graphic death of Boromir and all that. So they were but then they came back. They want to watch more. So now we're into Fellowship of the Ring. They're loving it. They're getting right through it. And to be honest, I've got the extended versions, which I've not watched through all the extended versions. I'm kind of ashamed to admit. And I'm loving the extended stuff. I was like, wow, I didn't even know that was in there. So it's great. It's kind of like watching them all over again. So I'm having fun with that.
Cool.
And that has allowed me to let my kids play. So my girls and I have been playing Halo for a long time now. I think I mentioned on the show before, just playing multiplayer. But I've always been nervous that the story itself for the campaign, which they've always wanted to try, is too dark. But now that they're handling Lord of the Rings, Halo's nothing. So I let them play that, and man, they're into it. They're playing that constantly. It's funny to hear them both playing cooperatively and like, cover my base, cover my back rows. It's just really, really funny.
That's hilarious.
Going at it, so it's pretty funny. And finally, speaking of video games, I just picked up Darksiders 2. Which our friend of the show, Ross Watson, helped do some of the writing on that game. And I have to say, it is a really, really good video game. I did not play Darksiders 1, but the premise of this game is basically in Darksiders 1, you're playing one of the Riders of the Apocalypse. In Darksiders 1, you play War.
Oh, that's cool.
So in Darksiders 2, things have happened to War. I didn't play Darksiders 1, but now in Darksiders 2, you're playing Death. And it's pretty awesome. It's the visuals are great. The writing's awesome. It's a fun it's sort of like a God of War game, but then with a lot of Tomb Raider type puzzles thrown into it.
Oh, I like that.
I really like it. I think you'd like it, Rafe. It's pretty good stuff. So definitely check out Darksiders 2 as well. And that is all of my Chivos. Anybody got anything else?
Hey, you didn't give me any achievements.
Oh, yeah, you got some in there. Don't worry.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm good.
Craig's dying. All right, that should be achievements then.
I'm dead.
Okay.
This is the D6 Generation Podcast. More fun than Merchant of Venus. Wait, what? Who writes this? That's impossible.
And so I'm playing 40K again. And so what happens is I'm looking at all my Imperial Guard models and I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to get these to Myriad? Because the problem is that I haven't played my Imperial Guard for years and years and years and years and years. And then I thought, you know what I thought, Russ?
What'd you think?
I thought battle foam. And then you know what I thought?
What'd you think?
I thought the world is going to end in 2012. And you know what I thought then? There's only one company out there that has a model case that's going to survive the apocalypse at the end of July.
That's true. And that would be
battlefoam.com. And we're talking about the Battlefoam Black Label case.
Black Label. Have you seen the video for this thing, Craig? It is insane.
Have. It's crazy.
It is virtually indestructible.
Yep. It's unbelievable.
It seals airtight, but then it's got a little one-way nozzle to let the air out. So if it's in a depressurized cabin on a plane, it won't explode.
Yeah. No, who thought that? How many of these lovely cases exploded before somebody went, "Hey, we got to put a valve on that"?
Put a valve on there. There's video. They're dragging it behind a truck. They're putting it under a wheel. And it's just indestructible. The miniatures are fine.
And Romeo had a problem with some people that were complaining to him. And you know what they were complaining about?
What?
That only a single wheel of the truck went over the case.
I know, right?
I'm sorry, man, but if the case survives one wheel, it's gonna survive the other one.
Right, and pretty much, if you're backing out of your driveway and you do hear the one wheel go over the case, that's when it's time to stop.
That's an excellent.
Don't hit it with the second wheel just to show off to your friends. It's probably going to be okay, but why chance it? Your models are in there, people.
But even though the world is going to come to an end soon. Right? I want to squeeze in as much RPGing as I can before I get there.
Oh, I know,
and even though I don't necessarily play the Iron Kingdoms role-playing game, there's only one case out there, or it's actually more of a bag in this instance, out there for carrying all of your stuff to go play your role-playing game. And that, of course, is the Iron Kingdoms role-playing messenger bag from Battlefoam.
That thing
is again
so
crazy.
Sweet. That thing is so sweet. First of all, it looks like your normal messenger bag. It hangs over your shoulder. It's got a nice handle. It's got a big interior compartment to hold all your books. But then it's got a little external pod with a little battle foam tray in there for all your miniatures, so you can carry your 3 or 4 or 5 guys you're going to bring to the battle. It is just so sweet. I'm definitely ordering one of those babies. No doubt about that.
That's absolutely crazy. I mean, I almost picked one up at Gen Con.
Yep.
It comes with multiple pieces of foam, and the foam are the same foam that come with the mini bag.
Yep.
So if you have a mini bag, they're interchangeable.
Yep.
It's plenty of foam for all your heroes and maybe some other stuff. And then of course I am the luggage guy. I love pockets and zippers and little areas and like you put all kinds of different things in there, and that's what you're looking at with this messenger bag. You could even fit a slim laptop in there with all your other rule books. It's really, really a crazy deal.
So definitely check it out over at battlefoam.com. And now, what's in the news? With the shout-out from Wooden Wars. Kids, grown-ups on the floor, soldiers marching with wooden strides, rubber balls in flight, a war game for young and young at heart. Search Wooden Wars on Kickstarter or go to skullandcrown.com. Oh, I saw Wooden Wars at Gen Con. That looked awesome. What are you mumbling about, Weakland? Oh, yeah, I saw them playing on the floor. They're throwing little rubber balls and knocking over little wooden guys. They're all painted. Fun for kids of all ages. Really? Little wooden soldiers. Yeah, whole units was crazy. All right, well, I guess it sounds interesting to Wakeland. So check out Wooden Wars. Thanks for the shout-out, guys, and check them out over on Kickstarter or Skull and Crown. That's SKULLN, the letter N, CROWN.com. And now the news. Let's see. Oh, this is kind of local news hitting home. We're very excited about this. Easy, Wakeland. Is this my segment or yours? Oh, it's yours. All right. Anyway, Wakeland is very excited, and so is Craig and everyone else here at the D6 Generation, as we are now a part of the Dice Tower Network. That's right. If you head over to the DicetowerNetwork.com or just head over to the Dice Tower, you'll see a lot of fine podcasts over there, and the D6 Generation is very proud and happy to be associated with all those great shows. So thanks to the Dice Tower for hooking us up, and we look forward to spreading the love with the listeners from both coming from our show there and from there coming to us. Thanks, guys. And now for real news, let's see. Oh, Malifaux RPG. That's right. Not only is there a Malifaux RPG in production, but Weird Miniatures has announced, Eric Johns has posted in their forums over there, that it will be a Kickstarter project. It's not up yet, but I expect it's to be coming soon. So if you're a Malifaux fan and always wish there was an RPG to play around in that crazy world, looks like it's coming soon. Oh, this is back in news. This is sort of interesting. Remember that game Mystery of the Abbey? One of the first games the guys in the D6 Generation reviewed, one of the early ones, and also I think the first game they ever gave away. Well, Mystery of the Abbey is back in print. It was out of print for a while. It had mixed reviews here on the show, but I think Russ liked it. I thought it was pretty fun. Basically, it's a sort of a whodunit game. Takes place in Monastery, sort of a Name of the Rose kind of thing. Very cool game, great components, great mechanics, really interesting game. It's now back in stock from Days of Wonder, so if you're missing that game, check it out. Oh, and the hotness that was at Gen Con, Netrunner. Remember that selling out in like two 2 minutes. Was it 3 minutes? I can't remember. Anyway, Netrunner should be now in local stores. So if you were anxiously awaiting your own copy of Netrunner, you should be able to find it at your local gaming store right now or very, very soon. This was not available in your game store, but should be soon. Speaking of Fantasy Flight, they had also announced some time ago the new Dust Warfare models for the SSU, the Airborne Walker Transport Helicopter, which had a slot on the bottom where you could actually stick a little transporter walker in there and you could pop out and do battle. Due to production delays, actually difficulty producing the actual models, it was delayed. It was originally supposed to be out in June. Apparently they've resolved the issue, and now they expect to have it back soon. So hopefully that will be back in public's hands real quick. Let's see. Video game news. The hotness this fall. There's a lot of hot video games coming out. It is the Christmas season. However, Borderlands 2 is definitely up there on the must-play list for a lot of gamers. And if you just cannot wait to start thinking about your Borderlands 2 character, well, wait no longer. No, the game's not out yet. It still comes out on the 17th. However, that's right. There is now a Borderlands 2 skill tree calculator over there on the main Borderlands2.com website. So if you just cannot wait to figure out exactly how you're going to get out your gunner, just head on over there and figure out all the different skill trees and your best possible maximal revenue. Revenue? Does that even make sense? Just go with it. Who writes this stuff? Anyway, let's see. This is sort of, really, this is in the news, Wakeland. Go, keep reading. Okay. The Batman live show is coming to the United States. Really? Anyway, apparently some folks thought the Spider-Man show in New York was pretty bad. Well, there's been a Batman show, live show in the overseas for a while now. It's coming to the U.S. on tour. If you're interested in that, check out nerdapproved.com and just search Batman live show for all the details on the tour. And let's see. And finally, map editor. What? Anyway, there's now a map editor available for Zombicide. You don't actually get to draw your own components. No, instead, what this lets you do is work with all the components that come in the core set, all the different tiles and the cars and everything else, and lay out your own favorite scenario. It's basically a scenario builder for Zombicide. Very, very cool. If you head over to the Zombicide Kickstarter project, just search Zombicide on Kickstarter and check out their updates, and you'll see right there there's an actual download spot, and you can download the PC version of the software. Very, very cool. And that's what's in the news.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
Well, welcome back. And, we did just have this entire prior episode 110, where actually we recorded things happening at Gen Con.
Not the entire episode. We saved some stuff.
Right. So we figured it wouldn't be fair to not even talk about some of the things that we experienced, highlights, if you will, of the con for us, that maybe didn't get covered in last episode because we really just talked about the Play by Mob and achievements of actually going to Gen Con. So this is sort of the things we experienced and what we liked. And Rafe is here. Hello, Rafe. Rafe's back for the segment.
Yes. And just like getting to witness the live event, I'm here to witness our Gen Con highlights. I mean, how could I miss a chance to talk about Hollywood's take on Gen Con, right?
Exactly.
So thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on. And what we figured we'd do is we go around robin style, and we'll start with Rafe, and each of us pick a highlight, and we'll just talk about it for a little bit, and we'll go around until we get bored, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Rafe, what was one of your highlights?
So that wasn't.
All right. No.
So that wasn't honest. I can tell that.
Well, we didn't say you being bored. We all have to collectively get bored. You're always bored. So
Rafe, you with me? Who's with me?
I'm not bored yet.
Where's my cricket noise? Darn it.
Yeah, I've got caffeine. I'm all fueled up. I'm ready to go. So Russ being the more efficient Gen Conner for me, one of my highlights was he emailed me earlier, I think it was like 2 months before Gen Con. He's like, hey, they're going to do an Iron Kingdom roleplay demo. Rafe, I know that you're really excited about that. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, yep. So Russ and I signed up, got me a ticket. We showed up on the day. And we had an awesome event play testing. I shouldn't even say play testing, playing getting to play Iron Kingdom role play. And it was done by Brent, who is the licensing manager of Privateer Press. And before we get into the details of the game, of the mechanics, I was so impressed with his enthusiasm after, getting to do 4 or 5 sessions. We were like probably the 5th session, and he still had a lot of enthusiasm about the game. And I think he even designed some stuff, right, Russ?
Oh, yeah. He was one of the designers, and I'm glad you brought this up, Rafe. I wanted to talk about this in conjunction with the fact that we also got to play Death Watch with Ross Watson. So it was really, really cool, and I think it was sort of like harkens back to the quintessential core of what is Gen Con. This particular Gen Con, I got to play in 2 RPGs with not just regular folks, which is always fantastic, but I got to play with the designers. You know, when Gen Con first started, it was you get to go play at Gen Con with people like Gary Gygax and people who design RPGs. So it was really, really cool to play with Brent and just see his deep understanding of the mechanics and his deep understanding of the world, and the same with Ross, these 2 really rich universes, and see how just how passionate your GM is about what they were doing and how they run the games and little things. And you can really focus. You're less worried about, you know, the mechanics, and you're more worried about, okay, how does he doing it? How is he really being this great GM with people he's never even met before? You know, just going at it, not even worrying about it. It was really fun to watch. And we also had fantastic players, right, Rafe?
Oh yeah, they were so fun. I mean, they weren't just like bumps on a log, and they would role play their character versus trying to be, you know, stat hungry or like, you know, my character was an actual leader, like that was her role, and I was very conscious to not, you know, try to hog all the airtime, and I would toss them, you know, a role, like we had a troll blood, and so I'm like, well, you know, let's have our troll blood go open up that door, and he would pick up the baton and role play it from there. He wouldn't be like, oh, okay, you know,
right?
whatever.
No, it was great, and I loved how Brent also dialed in on some little nuances too. Like your character was a Jack Marshall, right?
Yes,
and you had a Jack, but he wasn't like top of the line, state of the art. He was kind of a beat up old Jack whose cortex was a little damaged, and he never really.
Yes.
He took everything, all your orders very, very literally and sometimes incorrectly.
Yes.
So whatever you told him to do sometimes didn't work out so well for us. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, he would do that like you used to have back in the day with D&D and the Wish. You know, he'd be like, oh, you know, and he'd be like, no, that's not quite what I said, but it was you could see how he derived that, role playing moment.
It was fantastic, and Brett just
the mechanics though. This is what I want to talk about, Russ, too, and see what you thought about it. So. I am a huge PP fanboy, Privateer Press. I love Matt Wilson. You know, I'm going to buy anything he does. And I intended to go to Gen Con and not necessarily buy to Gen Con. Yeah, I'll pick it up through Married Games at my leisure and not use my Gen Con money to get it. Because I'm like, you know, we have so many role-playing games out there. We've got Savage World. We've got all the Fantasy Flight games. You know, who's going to really run up and want to play Iron Kingdoms with me? So, I did, and it was because I didn't want to learn another freaking role-playing rule set. And I know they had rewritten the rule set, and even though that's what I wished back in the day, I always felt it was tacked on with 3.5 D&D, you know, for Warhammer. War Machine, I was like, I'm not gonna like it. And oh my gosh, the freaking rules were so intuitive. If you know War Machine or Hordes, you can play this role-playing game right now.
It was,
you know, what do you think, Ross?
It was awesome. It was so everything's inches, right? And so it's built around miniature combat, much like Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of using a grid, it's all actual measured in inches. And it ties right into War Machine and Horde's mechanics, even down to the fact that your character has life spirals, just like Horde's creatures do. And it's great because as you take wounds, you roll in the spiral chart, and then of course you mark down your wounds. And if you lose a spiral, then you lose functionality. Your character actually takes, battle fatigue damage if things go wrong. Also, it's a 2d6 system, just like War Machine. It's not just percentile. Also, there are feat points, like many other RPGs have, and you can use your feat points to do things like boost your attack rolls or whatever rolls you're going to do. And it's not just boosting attack rolls. You can use your feat points to boost any check you're going to make. Really nervous about this alley you're walking down, boost your perception check, right?
Yep.
What's also cool about it is that, with feat points in most RPGs, they come back and go forward, at the discretion of the GM, right? So you're kind of hoping you can role play really well and really impress the GM. But in this game, that can happen. But also, anytime you roll doubles or what would be a critical in Hordes or War Machine, you get a feat point, right?
Yep.
So
or use any of your skills.
And it doesn't have to be combat. It can be just like you roll a really good perception check, or you roll double fours, and it's just when you need to get the perception check. Anytime you roll doubles, you get a feat point. So you're really up to a maximum whatever your character can have. So you're really encouraged to be active. You're really encouraged to do stuff. Just, come up with different things your character should do to get those feat points and use the feat points. It gets very, very dynamic, and it very much had that attitude of like, I'm going all in, and, kind of like you feel in War Machine, but without the competitiveness, right? You're all working together. But it was really, really, I really enjoyed it, and I really felt like I was playing War Machine Hordes, the RPG. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, and it was fun to play. I know the whole episode isn't on this, and it was fun to play in that universe. And I just want to capstone this, because I don't know if you got asked this question, Russ, but I would tweet out or mention I played it, and several people asked me, they're like, oh, does it really force you into good role playing? And I was like, no. I'm like, it's just like any other role playing game. Like, It's up to the DM. I mean, there wasn't any magic rules that would change a player or a DM to be like, okay, I walk up to the Necrotech, and I hit it with my axe. Okay, I hit. I mean, it takes a GM to be like, in the Necrotech's, smoke, his black, oily smoke is billowing from his cloak as he reaches out to tear your soul. I mean, it still took that, but the rules very easily.
And let me give you an
went into that
example,
kind of
of how the GM can add to the role playing game. So my character was for lack of a better term, a wizard, a mage, right? And so I wasn't a warcaster or anything.
gun mage, to be exact.
Well, I wasn't a gun mage. I didn't have any guns.
Oh, you weren't?
No,
I thought you were.
No, I had really two spells. I had an arcane shield spell and an arcane bolt, and so I could basically shoot little magic missiles, an arcane bolt like War Machine, like everybody knows. And I really like the pressure luck system in this game, where you could, every time you use energy, it kind of builds up, and then you got to kind of reduce it. But what I really wanted to point out was I had this ability where I could detect, my character could tell whatever spell was being cast. And so, I would ask Brent, I said, how do I know? I see a Crix caster casting a spell. What is he casting? And Brent's like, well, you see the colored rings circle around his hand. Like if you think of the artwork.
Oh, yeah.
So in the artwork, all these characters have these rings circling around that look like written in runes
and stuff.
And I had never really realized before. I mean, I guess I kind of should have assumed, but I never really realized that was all real in the War Machine universe. Like that actually happens in the game. And so it's like, so you see the circle spinning around and you read it says, draw blood from body. And you're like, oh my God. So he's going to suck your energy out, right? So it's like, it was really cool how he did that. So it was just that kind of level of thing is what makes these games fun. And like any RPG, there's tons of skills to choose from. So if you're really looking for something to use, it'll help you think of a role-playing tip. But you really need to be a kind of player like any RPG, where you get inspired to tell a story and not so much just be like, hey, make me play my character. No, you got to want to play your character, and then the rules will support it. And that's how this works.
All right, we better wake Craig up.
Okay, Craig, what did you do? What's one of your highlights from Gen Con?
One of my highlights from Gen Con. Well, I had planned a little differently for this whole fiasco, and so I had thought we were going to start from where we left off the last time we talked about Gen Con, but we can always go back, and I would love to say that the Geek Nation Tours event was actually really, really cool.
It was cool, yes. I want to talk about that too. Yeah.
It was a very cool catered affair.
It was.
With the JW Marriott tailgate package. So it was all like gourmet hamburgers and kielbasa and all kinds of really cool different salads and things like that. Terrace was basically the master of ceremonies. And we were some of several guests of honor, including Stephen Bonacore from Stronghold Games. And
I miss saying hi to Stephen.
Yeah, and Eric Johns from Weird Miniatures.
Jeff Engelstein was there too.
Jeff Engelstein was there too, and also a very nice lady, very high up in the Gen Con hierarchy, whose name I completely forget. Let's call her Meg. I don't know.
I think it was Martha, but I'm not sure.
You think it was Martha? Well, yes. It probably started with an M because I thought.
I apologize, Meg/Martha, for forgetting your name.
Oh,
really
I need to be there just to remember the names.
You do.
Yeah, you do. So that was very, very, very cool.
She was very nice and very knowledgeable.
She was extremely knowledgeable. She's been working for years. She's one of very few of the full-time, year-round employees of Gen Con, so she could answer all kinds of questions about, the organization and what happens in the off season, and so it was very informative and interesting. The food was great. The people were awesome. It was really neat to meet. This will show you that although I am really bad with names, I'm not bad with individuals. We had a really cool guy from Edinburgh sitting at our table. Mm-hmm. We had a really cool guy from Germany sitting at our table. Mm-hmm. We had a really cool guy from Australia through Canada going back to Australia or New Zealand. It was New Zealand, wasn't it?
I think so.
So I mean, we had a bunch of really cool guys sitting at our table. And I remember you all very fondly. I just can't remember anybody's name. So that was very cool.
No,
and the drinks were extremely expensive, and it was very nice of several listeners who came up and bought us drinks.
They were. It was very nice of you to do that. Thank you very much.
And yeah, it was extremely nice. We kept it to Diet Cokes, and we still feel like we put a big dent in your Gen Con money.
Right. That was awesome, actually. And one of the highlights of that, too, in addition to getting to see everything and watch Eric Johns throw out all kinds of never-before-seen weird plastics. I mean, basically, Eric brought one of each of the new hotnesses that were going to be revealed at Gen Con to this thing the night before and gave one away to everybody. Not threw them in the crowd. Everybody got something.
Right. Everybody got something.
And
People must have loved that.
It was fantastic.
Was that
We
a
got to-
surprise? Or was
Yeah,
that
we didn't
Heck
know.
yeah. No,
And-
we had no idea people were giving stuff away.
And then he brought a copy of Evil Baby Orphanage, and
Yes,
he
actually
demoed it.
several.
He demoed it for us and whoever else could sit there, and we played like eight or 9 person game of it, and it was a lot of fun. And in fact, we ended up buying it. We reviewed it last episode, so we really enjoyed it.
It was a lot of
You were
fun.
right on that, by the way.
About what?
Well, so it's not too inside, I played a demo with Craig and Dave,
Yeah.
and I was like, it's okay. And I really wanted to like it because I love the artwork and I love the theme of it. And then Craig's like, no, it's all about, because Dave was like crashing or bonking or something, and
He was low energy that day.
he was low energy, and I played it later, and oh my god, that game is fun.
Yeah, you got to
With the
play it in the right mindset, and then it's
right-
ridiculously
Yes.
hilarious.
It's silly.
Yes, yep.
So yes, Russ, I would agree to extend the Geek Nation Tours introductory dinner to the really awesome game of Evil Baby Orphanage with Eric Johns afterwards, and say that was definitely a highlight of mine.
But the ultimate highlight of the Geek Nation Tours dinner were the little catered cupcake table at the end there.
Oh, there was indeed
which
a
had
very good
cupcakes from
cupcake.
some kind of local cupcakery that were fantastic.
They were awesome.
I'll just say that.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's see.
Terrace had those brought in special. That wasn't JW Marriott. He had found somehow this little cupcakery. Is that a real word?
It is now. It
Okay,
is.
cool. I like it.
Okay.
And and had brought them in special. It was awesome.
So my highlight, let's see. Well, I really wanted to highlight the RPGs, and Rafe already covered Iron Kingdoms, and Craig covered the GNT dinner. So I will steal the Death Watch RPG. Woohoo!
That's a good one to steal.
That
awesome.
was fantastic. So listeners will remember that we had a Death Watch RPG last Gen Con where Ross was a player and Craig was the GM.
Yeah.
And Ross said after that, this was all fun and all, but I want a GM next time. So he
Which
invited
was good because Craig was a freaking nervous wreck and wasn't as good a GM as he
I
normally
Craig
don't
was
is.
think
fine.
we need to really bring
Craig
that
was
up.
fantastic.
Thank you.
But what's cool?
I appreciate your opinion, but let's move on.
Right,
Okay.
but stuff it. No, but
Yeah, let's stop it.
so no, it was fun. It was fantastic. But what was cool about Ross is, again, like Brent, Ross wrote the game. So you're like,
Yeah.
if there's a certain way to an RPG is meant to be played, the only way to find out is to play it with the designer. So
Yeah, I want to jump in just for a microsecond, Russ.
Yeah.
I was petrified though that it would be too, like when you play with the owner of the creator of the game, would it be too much?
Right.
And, oh my gosh, was it not? So keep
no,
going.
it was great. It was, and the first thing you think about is, okay, this isn't so hard, because you kind of like you guys. I'm like, oh God, is there a certain thing to do? And there were some tips that he gave us at the end that I actually noticed him doing during the game, and I thought to myself, I got to remember this, but I'll get to that in a second.
Me
But
too.
it was just so fun.
It was so fun.
It did take the pressure off with him GMing, and again, it had that feeling after doing the Iron Kingdom one the day before, and then doing this with Ross. I was like, this is the essence of Gen Con. This is what's so cool about it. And he invited us, and then some of our friends who played last year, who are now members of the Nerd Herders podcast. So David Farr and Matt Alex, and then as well as the folks from Game On with Cody and John. So Cody and John were also there, right?
Formerly of Game On with Cody and John.
So it ended up being a podcaster players and the inventor or the main author GM. So it was really, really cool. And it was just a great time. Now, we don't have to belabor because there's a Lost Chapter episode that covers the whole thing in real time, but it was a lot of fun. What did you guys think about the actual experience of playing with Ross?
I thought it was awesome, not only because he was such a master of the material and the theme and the ambiance, but because he was really a good game master that kept things going, didn't really feel railroaded, except for that one instance where we were being adamant about, we want the meeting to be in the spire where we just completely crushed the bad guys and we know it's secure.
Right.
Oh, but the guy on the other end is whining and really wants you to have this really important meeting at his location instead.
Yeah.
And you kind of get the idea, like, okay, I guess we'll be having our meeting.
Everybody
over
looks
there.
at each other and is secretly telegraphing, it's a trap, but we're going. Right.
We all turned into little squid heads for a moment.
It's a trap.
But other than
I had
that,
to
I
say
mean, it seemed real. We were given options. We took the different options, and they always seemed to go where he was prepared for us to go, which is either really good improv or just the sign of a really well prepared GM. And if I
Yes.
could make so bold as to share with the listeners a secret that he shared with us, because we were all like just
Mesmerized.
squeeing over his game mastery after the session, and he said one of the keys for him is that no matter what a character, no matter what a player asks him whether or not he can do something, the answer is never yes or no. It's always either yes but, or no and, or no but, or yes and, so that it's going to give options. So like, can I jump over this and shoot those 3 guys in the head and land in a pirouette? Yes, but it's going to require blah, 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 blah. So there's always a path forward, that the path that you wanted to take or that you envisioned is there. It's just going to be harder. And I think that's very true in general also, because you don't want to just shut people down when they're doing their stuff. And he didn't do that. He never shut us down. Any idea we had was always incorporated into the flow of the game that he kept running. I just thought that was fantastic.
I want to jump on that too with a highlight because it's good for any GM, and it's something I learned and that I do, and I'm going to stop doing. Ross was somehow able to keep your, how you get so many actions, like whatever system you're playing, move, fight, whatever. He was very liberal. Like I remember Russ had wings because he was Michael, and he, was going to jump through a glass window, and there was no roll. He was like, you're a Space Marine, you dive through the window, no problem, go for it. And there was one time when I'm like, I'm going to compose this really long message to go out on a micro bead, and then I wanted to run, scoop up a sword, and then attack. And Ross was like, yep, go for it. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I get to do so much rather than, well, that'd be a half action. And you know what I mean? Did you guys feel he was really liberal with that, but you didn't feel that it was broken?
No, I actually felt like that conversation that went back and forth between you guys was because you didn't realize that talking was a free action.
Oh, I just
so you spent forever like crafting the sentence, and you were going to I want to say it exactly this way, like literally writes it down in a notebook, and then says, "Okay, this is what I want to do," and reads it out, and then Ross would say, "Well, then what do you want to do?" And so take
Russ's jumping through the window thing. Like in the past, I would have been like, "Well, that might take a dexterity check or something,"
Right, which I think is a totally valid option, though. I think that was an excellent example of where Ross was streamlining things.
Right. You remember, he had a lot of players. So Ross had to, and again, he did a great job of deciding where do you roll and where don't you roll. And I think that was great. And Craig, I agree with you completely. I think when Ross at the end said, there are the 3 choices, yes and, yes, but, and no, and you very, very rarely try to say no. Right. That was really profound to me. And looking back in my head, I thought it through, and then when I listened to the Lost Chapter, because when we edited it, I had to listen to the whole way through to edit it, and I definitely noticed it. So if you're a Lost Chapter subscriber, definitely check that out. I don't want to oversell it, but check out his GM style. It's really interesting. It's always, yes, you definitely can do that, or yes, but, and you can really feel like he's never saying no to the players. They can do whatever they want, essentially, but he's also guiding and controlling it. And with the but, you suddenly realize, okay, I have the chance to do it, but he's telling me that is a pretty good chance I'm going to kill myself or shoot my friend or whatever, so now I got to rethink. So you feel like you're making the decision, even though he's really making the but so tough that you really don't want to do it.
Right. And I think, Rafe, that what you're saying is absolutely true, and that is a valid technique for any game master if they want to take it, where you pull back on all of the crunchy skill checks and everything if you want a more sort of heroic adventure too. I just think that what he was doing, it was more in line with kind of streamlining the whole thing so that everybody kind of got their moment in the sun, so to speak.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right, Craig. Oh, Rafe, what was your next highlight?
Let's see. My next highlight is Malifaux.
Ooh, so how was Malifaux highlight for you?
That's right. You heard it. You heard it here first. Those of you of long listening fame know that I have complained that Malifaux has broken my brain and that I didn't like to play it. And Malifaux players would be like, no, Rafe, it's just because you played Pandora and her crew, and that's an extremely complicated crew. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get this card mechanic and blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of our local players have started playing Malifaux, and I'm like, oh, I'll give this a second try. As Craig says, I've always loved the fluff. By the way, Craig, I got a whole bunch of with people now knowing I have Malifaux. They cite to your introduction that you did in episode whatever about Malifaux. Oh yeah, oh my god, I hear that all the time.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know that was awesome. So yeah, so it was really fun. I was right. I had fun, but here's my Gen Con highlight was it was fun to go shopping. It was fun to go on the Theory Hammer boards and go, what crew do I want to play? And so I decided on Guild, and so I got to pick up Guild, and then of course I was lucky enough to get the new model Mysterious, which I think Russ is same faction for you.
I already got her. She's the new female Death Marshal.
Yep, female Death Marshal, the one with the coffin.
Well,
and by the way, I've already built her, and whoo, that is a fiddly model to build.
Yeah, they're
it's
all
like a
kind
little
of like
foot that's like the size of a fingernail.
Yeah, that's why I call Malifaux an advanced gamer game, because the bits, even on the metals, they're very small components, so you have to really know what you're doing. Yeah,
that was yeah.
But that goes to show you the plastics, and she's plastic. The plastics are just as detailed and small as the metal, so they didn't lose any detail, but it's still tricky. And one of the things I was nervous about in the plastics was that clipping them from the sprue, since they're so small, any kind of misclip would really be a giant
would be
noticeable
hazardous.
bit. So it's definitely tricky. But again, if you're got experience with the model, it's not too hard.
Yeah. So the highlight is believe it or not, I actually don't buy a lot of stuff at Gen Con, but this Gen Con I did. And so it was fun. My wallet was open, and I'm like, I'll have this, and I'll have that, and I'll have the new Executioner model with the new sculpt. And because I wanted to get up to that mark to be able to buy the Mysterious, and I'm like, ooh, and I'll buy the retro-looking deck. So it was really fun to kind of just go shopping.
Nice.
And then added fun to that was Eric Johns was always like talking to me the whole time. So I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So Craig was there for that part, actually.
I was there.
Yeah, Malifaux was awesome. I'd spent a lot of money on Malifaux myself.
Yeah, I think Rafe spent more than the rest of us,
probably,
which was odd because he was all weekend. He's like, I'm not going to buy anything. Why would I buy anything? And then it was just like, boom! Oh crap! How did that happen?
Yeah.
So
totally.
Craig,
I bought 2 starter boxes.
What's your next highlight there, Craig?
My next highlight, Russ, would probably be. Well, our event was awesome, and I would like to just comment on right after our event, I went and had lunch with Rafe and John, formerly of Cody and John fame, and Ray and John whipped out this little game called Timeline, and he and Rafe started to play it in the windy outdoor food truck area, which was maybe not the best place to play a game with little Corey card sized cards, but it was an awesome little game, and I liked it even just watching Rafe and John play it so much. It highlights for me another cool thing about Gen Con is there are these games, and this game has been out for a little while now. It's been out in Europe for quite a while, I believe, and it's an Asmodee game, I think, or Asmodee. There's like 2 different companies that sound almost identical. And it was awesome. And it was also awesome watching Rafe play it, because basically the game can be summarized by the deck of cards is like 120 inventions.
These were inventions.
Or discoveries. And on one side, it just has a little picture and the invention, and the art is awesome. And on the other side, it has the actual year or the era for like things like fire. In which it was invented or discovered. And you've got a hand of 6 cards. The other guy has a hand of 6 cards, and your hand size shifts a little bit depending on size of the game. And all you're trying to do is go back and forth, and you flip a card to start with your timeline. And the first player gets to put down whether he thinks it goes before or after whatever card got flipped first. And then you're literally building a timeline with your cards, and the first person who gets rid of their cards wins. And it was such an elegant, fun little game, and at the same time, very educational, that it was a blast. And I literally went from our Play by Mob event, which was awesome, and we already talked about that, but it was a blast. And the entire Engelstein family did an amazing job and was a lot of fun to work with. Went for lunch, ended up with what was the thing about lunch? Because that was confusing.
What thing about lunch?
Lunch was Russ wanted us to get the tenderloin sandwich, but was calling it chicken.
No, it's pork.
Right.
Yes, I know it's pork, but you were calling it chicken.
You called it a chicken tender sandwich.
Yeah.
No, it's pork tenderloin.
Yeah, no, I know now.
We know what it was.
It's like German.
You called it.
It's like German schnitzel. It's all pounded flat, and it's
Absolutely, but you were calling it
delicious.
chicken.
You called it a chicken tender.
I don't.
You're like,
I must have misspoke.
I shouldn't say calling. I should say called it as in once.
I must have
it was
misspoke.
it was a misunderstanding.
It's a giant. It's awesome. It is fantastic.
Yes, it was awesome, but I ordered it as if it was a chicken sandwich.
Did they laugh
so
at
I
you?
ordered all of the condiments and extras and sides that I would get with a chicken sandwich. And when I realized, like, the guy was like, pork tenderloin, I was like, oh no. My first
Well, for
bite
me,
was trepidation.
Russ was like, again, he like right before that, he's telling Craig and I, he's like, you got to get the chicken tenders sack, or I think he called it chicken tenderloin or something. He's like, it's flat and it's pounded out and it's awesome. And so I'm looking on the menu and I see tenderloin and I'm like, where's this chicken tender sandwich
the funny
that
part.
Russ
I was
is
like,
talking
See, I think I
about?
just said tenderloin. Everybody
Over my
assumed it was
shoulder
chicken.
Going, what are the chicken? What? And I was like, yeah, chicken. But I knew that I was getting the tenderloin.
Me too. That's what happened to me.
Well, you
yeah,
got the right thing. That's the important bit.
Right. I'm not sure I would have had it with all of the things that I had it with, but it tasted good. And it was funny because all of us sitting there all had it, which was fun.
That's
So,
good.
Right.
literally got up from there, having watched them play the game once, went right into the vendor hall and bought the game.
That was a fun game because it was one of those games where, they show a musket and I'm like, I'm going to say that was before, the steam engine, in the steam engine's 1810 or something. Or I'm going to say that's after. And Craig's like, what? Are you nuts? And then you'd flip it and be like, oh, Craig was right or whatever. So it was one of those fun games where you could hang on and watch and have fun too.
And I realized that I'm only good at that game when I'm watching Wraith not be good at it. And I'm responsible for my own cards. I'm an absolute idiot.
Wow. All right.
And you got things like asteroids. Like what? When were
Yeah, the
asteroids
video game.
discovered? And it was very, very cool and very
It was very
neat
fun.
and totally out of the blue. A, not ever the kind of game that I would have thought that I would have enjoyed if you'd described it to me. B, never even imagined that it existed. And C, I was so enamored of it. And for $10, and it comes in a beautiful little
Tin. Yep.
tin that's like 3-dimensional pressed tin for the box. And
I mean,
really nice.
being an educator is a no-brainer.
Absolutely. It was just awesome. So that was absolutely a highlight because I ended up playing it for the rest of the weekend because literally the game takes 10 to 15 minutes to play.
It's fast. Yeah, it's nice.
It's
The
very
artwork's great. I really like the artwork.
A lot of fun. So that would be a highlight of mine.
All right, so I have one here. Now, this one's interesting. I've never been to Hickman's Killer Breakfast, but I was told for many years that it's a must-see Gen Con event. So this year I decided I must see it. So
As did most of us.
and everybody decided, yes, we shall all go see it. So we all got a big mob of tickets and went on Friday morning. Because also this year, I think it was the first year they did 2 Killer Breakfasts instead of just 1. So
Oh, no kidding.
now the first thing to know about Hickman's Killer Breakfast is there's absolutely no breakfast served, which we knew going into that. It's actually, I would describe this as, Dungeons and Dragons meets Whose Line Is It Anyway? Is essentially what this is. So it's sort of like on-stage improv, if you will, for both players and the Hickmans, who basically put your characters in a strange situation and then ask you to do something witty or silly, or they kill you as quick as they can to cycle through more players. It's basically the premise. And there's lots of fanfare. There's a little video. They've got sound effects. They've got audience participation. It's very much sort of a crazy, nuts sort of play-by-mob thing. And I got it. It was fun. I'm not sure I'd do it twice because it's a big time commitment. It's 2 hours. But it's fun. I think you should do it once. What do you guys think?
I didn't go, and it's funny. I've never heard of it. It doesn't mean it wasn't cool, but I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Craig?
It's in a room that does like 200 people, and they had it twice. So now it wasn't full when we went, but I think Saturday's a more full event. So
We went on Saturday.
no, we went on Friday morning.
Did we?
Yes.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Oh yeah, because we talked about it at the event at our mob play by
Yes.
mob. You're right. Okay, whatever.
Ever.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was actually very disappointed. I found it underwhelming. It had some very funny moments. For the most part, though, it was just not exactly what I was expecting or how I feel like it's billed, including the way Russ bills it. I could see like the ideal is kind of like Dungeons and Dragons meets Whose Line Is It Anyway, but I didn't really get that like a successful vibe off that from that structure.
Now, one thing I should
So-
say is that I had to leave. Nicole had an appointment at 10, So we had to
Right.
leave at like 9:45. So I was only there for 45 minutes of the event.
Yeah.
And the event is billed for 2 hours, so it may be that it gets a little
Maybe
stale after the
that
first
might be
45
why.
minutes. I don't know.
It gets very long after a while is what happens. And don't get me wrong, there are some iconic moments that Tracy Hickman throws in there, and he is a very funny guy. And his wife Laura, and of course we're talking the folks. I mean, you know, these are iconic authors from the Dungeons and Dragons universe, and elsewhere. I mean, Dragonlance and all those other things. And it was neat seeing them and sort of interacting with them, but it was also at the same time, the whole thing kind of drags, and it wasn't so much, you know, 8 people get up there and he just starts killing people, and as you're killed, you come up. It was more like 8 people come up. They all explain how their characters got into this situation. He rolls with it for a little while and then kills everybody, and 8 new people come up. And then you have to explain how you got there, and then he rolls with it for a little while, and then he kills everybody, and then very seldom did only one person get killed and plucked out, which is the sort of rapid fire element that I was anticipating and the energy that I was anticipating, rather than what I felt ended up being more of a plodding kind of, and now we're going to do the lava bowl under the people hanging from the ceiling bit. Ba, 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 ba. And so I to be honest, it kind of felt from a theater person's perspective that I was watching a show that had outlasted the energy of the cast. Is what. And then when you take into account the fact we had all volunteered to be up on stage, and most people who go up on stage, interact with him at least a little bit, and they're up there for a little while, except for 2 points over the course of the of the whole event, where Laura Hickman gets to play these little like game show games, and those are like rapid fire. You get up there, you don't even get to talk, you're dead, you leave. So as one of the probably 30 people who ended up involved in that element, I was like, I'm not sure why I stood in line in the dark backstage for a half an hour so that I could get up there, be asked what his favorite song was, and of course I got it wrong, so I was killed and immediately removed from the stage. So it was, I wouldn't do it again, and I would warn people that unless you're a huge Hickman fan or a huge D&D fan, or like fantasy role playing in general, I would say. I promised myself that if I had nothing good to say, I wouldn't say anything. So I don't know why I'm rambling on. So there you go. They seemed like very nice people.
They seem like. All right,
And that's true. That's absolutely true. They seemed like I would have loved to either have been up there for a little while interacting with them, or just sit in the audience to actually just enjoy it, rather than spend the whole thing getting all nerved up to get up in front of the audience and then.
Yeah, I think going on stage may have been, and then you had a bad experience with that, so that may have tainted your experience. I think everybody should try at least once, and maybe just sit in the audience. I think it's pretty funny, but that's just me. Humor's subjective. What are you gonna do?
Oh yeah, that's true.
All right, Rafe.
I mean, some people don't like our rapid fire.
I know. What is that about?
If there's some people who don't like that, then there's got to be people who don't like anything. I mean, who doesn't like rapid fire?
Right. Rafe, what's your next one, man?
All right, this was a highlight for me. You know how you're at the con and you're kind of looking for the right kind of game and you're not sure what it is, and then you find it? Well, that's what happened with me at the Mayfair booth of all booths. I am not a huge fan of Settlers of Catan. I appreciate that it is one of those games, that's a gateway game and a lot of people like it. What I don't like about it is I don't like about the trading and how you're kind of forced to have other people to trade with you. So this game is, even though it's called Settlers, it is not the same mechanic whatsoever. It is a adventure game. You play 4 adventurers, and there's woods, mountains, and there's a village. And every adventurer gets a card. Adventurer has a card, like a player mat card, and there's certain stats on it. And the goal is to get 10 victory conditions. And the way you get victory conditions is you go out into the woods and you flip a Catan-like tile, and underneath it is a wolf. And there's a way to actually combat the wolf. You combat the wolf. If you win, you get the pelt. You then can take the pelt, go into your town, and it's like 2 pelts and a bone, and you make this little item, and that little item you give to this little villager in the town, and that gives you 1 VP. And so there's this neat little like crafting mechanic, which you guys know I like. And there's this neat little exploring mechanic where you go out and you explore the tiles, and sometimes you flip over a tile and you find a magic bow, and that makes you a little bit more able to kill the monsters that you come across when you keep coming across, and you can have some fun and you use your magic weapons and stuff like that. So I found that it was just really fun, and so I instantly bought it. Actually, I was able to buy it because the Aherns, who were there in force, had done that thing. I forget what it's called. Oh, Night of Catan, where if you play so many and you demo so many different Catan type of games, you get like wood and sheep and ore and
banners for your card, for your
badge.
Yep.
And so they were really kind, and they gave me a coupon, which was 50% off. So I ran right up and got the game at 50% off, and so that was really happy to me because I was looking for that kind of game. I was looking for a sort of Agricola-like experience, but not Agricola, and I found it, and I'm like, yes, and so that was awesome.
Well, I didn't play that one, but I did. I do have to admit that Nicole and I bought Star Trek Catan. We did. We did. Well, you don't own a copy.
Did you get to play it?
No, I saw it being played, and I actually have not played it yet. And I'm, we're not huge fans of Settlers of Catan, but it's kind of like the game. Settlers of Catan is kind of like Monopoly from the 80s or the 70s. You're supposed to own a copy, And I figured if you're going to have to own a copy, you might as well own the Star Trek version just because it's Star Trek. So I bought it. We should play it. It does look like it's got some neat stuff in it, but anyway. Did not play it yet.
Okay.
Craig, what about your next one?
That being, no, I think we're up to you, Russ. That being not a highlight of yours, give us a highlight of yours.
Okay. Sure. So, we talked about Killer Breakfast. Next, I think we talked a little bit about this in the. In fact, I will skip it. We mentioned Artemis already in the Achievements of Gaming from episode 110. We did. You actually described Jeff as his captaining abilities.
Oh, that's right. That was awesome.
I'll skip that. But Artemis was fantastic. No, I'll talk instead about True Dungeon.
Oh, here.
Now, we've done True Dungeon every year, and normally our good friend Cody, formerly of Game On with Cody and Jen, runs True Dungeon, organizes True Dungeon for us, and Cody's awesome at it, and he's hardcore, and his whole family does it, and they have their great costumes, and they have every token you'd ever need. So we've always been under the umbrella of Cody's awesomeness, which usually makes us feel warm, fuzzy, and safe, and generally not have to worry about anything. But this year, our local crew organized our own True Dungeon thing, and while there's one or two of us who have gone a little crazy on tokens, most of us only own, in fact for me, I only get whatever comes in the bag each year. I don't bother collecting them or anything like that. I just like playing the dungeon. So we went in, and we did the combat version, and we did awesome, right, Craig?
Well, not only did we do awesome, and I would have to say that I did it twice last year. I did it with Cody and John and all of their awesome tokens, and then I did it with our local friends with no tokens, and it was different last year also. What we should probably spend a little time talking about is that last year at the end of it, there was a little video talking about how for a variety of reasons and through a variety of different efforts that had been put forth by the guys who own and run True Dungeon, that they were going to kick it up a notch this year, and that it was going to be a special. Was it the 10th anniversary or?
I think
something
it was more
along
than that, or
something
something.
along that. Now for
well, it's Gen Con's 45th, right? And then it was
right, but they've only been in Indianapolis for,
right. But it was they're celebrating the big anniversary thing.
They were and it might have been the Gen Con anniversary. I thought it might have been True Dungeon, but anyway, so they were gonna kick it up a notch. So we didn't know what to expect when we went in, and when you walked in, I was blown away from the very beginning.
See, I'm still skeptical.
Well, then that's fine for you to be skeptical, but how about you let me talk? Let our listeners talk and listen to me, and then you can express your skepticism.
Yeah, okay.
So you walk in, and it's a very realistic, three-dimensional stone grotto, like a natural outcropping of rock, this little cavern, and there's snow falling.
Yeah, we should say, too, that it was in the convention center this year, which normally it's not.
Yep.
And they had a huge space this year. And so as Craig's describing, what's interesting is normally in True Dungeon, it's sort of not True Dungeon-y until you get the actual dungeon part. This year, though, as soon as you go through the doors to just register and do everything's in that world, right? It's all dark and there's torches and go ahead, Craig.
Well, and not only that, I mean, the walls of the chambers last year were like fabric or just the kind of modeled painted colors or foam core that had been kind of like stone textured a little bit. And everything this year was was rocky and irregular
awesome,
and made to look like caves where it was supposed to be caves, and fitted stone where it was supposed to be in like dwarven crafted chambers. And really, literally what they said they were going to do, they did. And the entire thing was kicked up a notch to the point where I felt at times that I was walking through almost like a movie set.
Yeah, it was really. I thought it was very well done, and that was really cool. I think the whole thing was fantastic. All the GMs we had were fantastic. I know sometimes they're tired, but this time we just got lucky. I don't know the right time. Everybody's just really good this year, or whatever it was perfect. The puzzles are great. The combat was great, and we actually we got a little hurt, but we did fine all the way to the end, and we actually had a glorious victory at the end, right?
Yeah. We killed the undead dragon.
Yeah, which was fantastic because I remember the first year I did it, they had that super hard year, and you felt like there was really no hope for the heroes, despite having Cody and all the gear and everything else. And this year I felt like, we did fine, and it was fun, and it was great. And I would definitely, if that's the level they can maintain every year, I would definitely recommend True Dungeon as a regular experience every year at Gen Con. That was a lot of fun.
And I tried to find the owner at the end of the weekend, because I was wandering around on Sunday and I had a little free. I had tried to find him throughout the weekend because he was trying to find me since our event. And I kept I would go in and they would be like, "Oh, he just left," or I would go to the Dwarven Forge booth and they'd be like, "Oh no, he's over there." So I went at the end, and there's a guard at the door, and they won't let you into the ballroom once they start tearing down.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't pull it. Do you know who I am? It was just knowing the name of the owner was apparently enough to. The guy was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I think he's inside. So they just let me right in, and the lights in the ballroom were on, and I got to see everything in full normal lighting, because there were multiple taverns and multiple caverns that just for preparation, just for sitting at tables and discussing things. And the lighting was actually maybe a little too dim. One of our friends classified it as accidentally bring a man home dark. But it was amazing. And going in there and watching the guys tear it down, I could see what they had done to make the irregular rock walls that blended in with the lighting to make them look so realistic was that they had used tin foil backed insulation that they could then shape irregularly, and it would keep its shape. And then they had painted that in multiple different theatrical element levels to create a three-dimensional stone effect that in the dark was just amazing. And so it was awesome watching it after the fact, behind the scenes, to see how they'd done it and see literally how many theatrical techniques they had leveraged to create this completely all-encompassing event that I thought was awesome.
Cool.
So let me ask this. I didn't do True Dungeon this year, and the years before, I always attribute this to what I call the Russ effect. So Russ will say, "Oh my God, Rafe, you've got to play the newest Star Wars. It's like the most incredible thing," and he gets me all hyped up. And then inside my brain, I think I'm gonna look like Obi-Wan and have robes and a beard. And we're talking about the first 3 episodes, and I'm gonna be able to move my Xbox around with the Force. And then I play the game, and I go, "Oh, okay, it's a game." So in other words, I think my own fantasy exceeds reality, and that's what I always felt like with the other True Dungeons. But Craig, having done both, do you think it's because maybe having all those oobed up tokens and super experienced True Dungeon players, is that the magic? Or it sounds like it's a combination of both. Of not having
we didn't
all,
have that.
That's what I mean. It sounds like what made it better was you weren't all oobed up with everybody was like, no, don't do that. I've got the +9 weapon for that, and that the terrain was 10 times better.
I don't know. I mean,
okay.
Last year, I did have more fun running without all of the equipment, just because there's less to keep track of.
Okay.
Although I died, so it could go either way. But no, I think we had a really good crew. I think everybody was excited to be there. Everybody was energized. I think exactly what Russ said. All the room GMs were awesome. They were very energetic. They didn't give away anything, but they kind of they would cheer you on, sort of, if things started to get there was one puzzle room that got really frustrating at one point, and the guy was like, you're close, and we were like, oh, come on. So we didn't give up, because literally I think we were probably a minute or two away from losing that room.
Yeah, barely. We actually beat every room, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
too.
we had a really good run, which I think was a combination of the people that we had, and I mean, we didn't have a lot of equipment, but we had a couple key pieces that led us through at different parts. I think it was actually like a really cool, well-run game, role-playing game, because it seemed like everybody had a moment where they shone. And so, yeah, I don't know, Rafe, what makes it that great, but I would say it was the people that we were with, coupled with all of the effort that went on to behind the scenes to create the different puzzles and the people that were there, the volunteers that were there running it, and then just simply put all of that in front of the backdrop of this really cool 3-dimensional. I mean, we were building a giant stone archway, like a huge life-size stone archway at one point, and on one side, each of the arch sections of stone had a rune on it, and they would only shine under black light. So when we built the arch, the light in the room would suddenly shift. It would go all black, and some of them would have runes on them, and some of them wouldn't. And we'd be like, "Oh crap!" And then the woman's like, "Oh my god, it collapses, and you all take 2 points of damage." And we're like, "Oh god!" And so we've got to like try to figure out. And because of my arm, I couldn't lift up over my head, so I was kind of like standing back and helping figure out what order they should be in. And a couple of us were doing that. So I mean, there was a sense of buy-in for all of our friends. There wasn't anybody going, "Oh yeah, here we go, True Dungeon, whatever." It was nobody was role playing per se, but everybody was into what we were doing.
Right. It was cool. Yeah. It was fun.
It sounds like give it a second go around.
Just plain fun.
For me, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Again, it depends on who you're going with, and I mean, I have heard people who are like, "Oh, our room GMs were tired and they didn't put any extra energy into it," and so I can see how that would detract a little bit. But ours were awesome, and I can't speak of anything else from experience. Ours were awesome, and the quality of everything was just kicked up a notch, just like they said they would do.
Cool.
I think we have time for one more topic, and Craig, I think you're one behind, so why don't you pick your final highlight this evening?
Oh, okay. Well, my final highlight, interestingly enough for this episode, was a game that I had no idea even existed. And I got a tweet from Russ. That's right, Russ tweeted. And all it said was, this game, like something like this game was made for Craig, or this is Craig's game, or something. And I literally, the picture was so tiny on my phone, I couldn't see a thing. And I was like, are those spaceships or sailboats or what's going on? But I was so intrigued that I went all over the Vandal Hall, all over the vendor hall, tracking Russ down. And I was like, "Russ, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, come with me. You got to see this." I was like, "Okay." So he brings me to the Gale Force 9 / Battlefront booth, and there in a big giant display is a new board game called Spartacus.
Indeed.
And boy, is that game amazing.
Yes, more about that later this episode, but that game is fantastic.
Russ and I sat down for a demo, and it's one of those things where people were doing demos and buying the game before they stood up from the demo table.
You know, it's funny, too, because we're not the only ones, actually. I was watching Board Game Geek, and literally while we're at the con, people are posting the surprise hit of Gen Con, and it totally was because, A, it's Gale Force 9, who is a company we have a great deal of respect for and love, but they're a miniature game accessories company. You know, they've never made a game before.
They've never done any games.
Right. And Battlefront has never done a board game before. They've done miniature games, they've done a board game. And now they're good with licensing. They have a lot of licenses with other companies. But so we were like, and it's based on a show that's good, but you know, so we're like,
niche-y,
whatever.
Very, very niche-y.
It's totally Nicole's fault because we were walking by together and Nicole's like, "Ooh, Spartacus." She likes Spartacus. And I'm like, and she's like, "We're buying this." I'm like, "You're buying that just for the abs on the cover. Come on now." She's like, "Yeah, so what?" So she got it. And then we started watching it and I'm like, "Oh my God, Craig." And that's why I took a picture. I said, "Craig, this is your game," because Craig loves Rome. And then Craig and I actually got lucky enough to sit down in a demo.
With one of the designers.
With one of the designers.
Actually, the 3 designers were doing all the demos all weekend.
That's cool.
And,
which was awesome.
And, well, we knew some of them. It turned out that some of the guys who we used to know from our jacket
we knew
days.
them all.
Yeah, we knew them all. So it was like kind of cool. And then I started playing it, and Craig and I both fell in love. Like, this is it was like when I first played Battlestar, because it so captured the theme through the mechanics as well as the components. It just is exactly what you want from a Roman-themed gladiatorial, but it's not just gladiatorial combat. Well, we'll talk about the game later in the show, but it's awesome. It's awesome. Oh, really?
I want to know more about it.
And so that was that. that was probably the most exciting and fulfilling moment of the entire weekend for me, because it was the culmination of so many different interests, and it lived up to my hopes and dreams so much that I did the demo with Russ and then immediately bought the game. And then the next morning, I demoed it again with Matt, our friend Matt Alex from the Nerd Herders. And he bought it before he stood up from the table. And I mean, it's just, and then he and I actually then went over to Campaign Coins. Shout out to the guys at Campaign Coins who happen to be listeners. And we bought real actual metal coins to bling out our sets so that they were even cooler to
I
play
like
with.
Campaign Coins. Those guys rock.
Good stuff.
It was, so that Spartacus, Blood and Treachery, I think, Blood and Treachery, I think is what it's called, was without a doubt the big, huge surprise of the con for me. The super exciting. I've played it more than I've played anything else, except maybe Timeline, because Timeline takes 10 minutes to play. It was that was my highlight. That was one of those games where you like it so much, just like Russ did to me, you start dragging other people to the demos because you want them
And people
to just enjoy it as much as
People were
you do.
literally in the demo. And here's the thing, because like Craig's like, how much is this? I'm just like, dude, it's a steal for $50. The guy's like, it's 40. We're like, what? It's 40? And people were literally at the table demoing it, pulling out 220s and handing it to the guys. And the guys would run over by it, bring it back while they're demoing the game. It was just like boom, 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 just moving like crazy. It was awesome.
That's cool.
So now that we've got you all hyped up, we'll talk about more about Spartacus in a little bit.
You're listening to the D6 Generation. Born to Game.
You know one of my favorite things about Game Salute, Craig?
What's one of your favorite things about games?
My favorite thing about Game Salute is they go out and they find the awesomest games of awesome. And they
That's a lot of
vet
awesome.
them, through their Springboard system, and they figure out if it's a good game or not. And this one, I didn't even know about this one until Game Salute brought it to my attention, and they want us to talk today about a new Kickstarter RPG called Story Realms.
Oh, I checked that out. It looks pretty damn cool.
And this is a particular interest to me because I like playing RPGs. I've talked on the show before about trying to find RPGs that are good with young kids. And Story Realms is specifically designed for this. It's got all kinds of cool... It sort of takes place in sort of one of those universes where everything's real, your fairies, your werewolves, whatever you need. Yep. And it's got cool... the system is really neat where there's like a playing card and you have your spots to put all your gear, and it's very intuitive for players, for younger players, but it also just looks like it's really a wonderful system. The components look great. The artwork looks fantastic. Head on over to Kickstarter.com and check out Story Realms. Just search for it, and you will find it. And I think you'll be impressed. Watch the video. It's really nice. Nicely done.
It is beautiful. Yep. Very neat.
Definitely check it out. And if you want for other projects like that, check out Gamesalute.com while you're out there.
Absolutely.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakelin and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. This week's shout out is brought to you by Wooden Wars, a war game in the classic style of H.G. Wells, using customizable laser-etched wooden toy soldiers. Search for Wooden Wars on Kickstarter or go to www.skullandcrown.com. This week, I'm going to talk about news that's technically old news that's new news again, because it's something that's come back. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, is back in theaters. It's in IMAX this time, and since my kids had never seen it in theaters, I thought it would be the perfect time to take them and expose them to the glory of Indiana Jones the way it was originally intended. Now, you can't get this movie in just a regular movie experience. You have to go for IMAX. Thankfully, they didn't do some crazy wonky 3D-ness to it, but it is on the gigantic screen with the mind-blowing sound that was not part of the original Indiana Jones experience. And we had a wonderful time. In fact, Russ even wore his genuine licensed Indiana Jones fedora, which he hasn't worn in years. He broke that out for the occasion. And we really enjoyed it. I think Russ and I enjoyed it more because it was so much fun to see it on the big screen again. But I do have to admit, seeing it in IMAX it messed it up for me just a little bit. The reason being, the movie wasn't really filmed that way to begin with. It was filmed to be on a traditional teeny tiny little screen like you had back in 1981. We didn't have stadium seating. We didn't have all this fancy schmancy surround sound stuff. We didn't have all the fancy stuff that they charge you $15 a ticket to experience in a movie theater these days. We just had a screen with overpriced popcorn, and that was it. That's all you had. And a couple of times during the movie, I actually found myself wishing that that's what I had again. A few times the perspective was a little bit off, almost a little blurry, like your eye couldn't quite adjust to what they'd originally filmed being on such a big screen. And sometimes the sort of cinematic elements were lost for how big the screen was. You know, when you see that shadow of Indy as he is standing there and everyone's digging to get down to the snake-filled room that actually has the ark in it, and you see him outlined against the sunset, somehow it wasn't quite as crisp and as cool as it should have been because the screen was just so darn big. Now, my kids thought it was pretty neat. They liked it. They enjoyed it. They've played the Lego game, so they know Indy and they know the characters from the movie. But for them, it was almost a little overwhelming because the scary bits were really scary. Like, you know, the melty-faced Nazi at the end. He's scary. I covered their eyes for that. But even so, you still get to hear it in that mind-blowing sound. It kind of reminded me a little bit of when they first started colorizing black and white movies, when all of a sudden everything that made sense when it was just in gray tones, you had these women with overly pink cheeks and overly brash blonde hair and bright blue suits and greens that weren't at all what you would have expected to see anybody wearing at the time, and clearly had no input from somebody who actually would have understood how the colors would have affected what the audience saw. It kind of ruined some of those old black and white movies, and I felt a little bit like it did the same thing for Indiana Jones. I still love Indy. I still love the character and the movies, and I would go see it again in a heartbeat. But I sort of just wish they left Indy alone and kept him on the small screen, the regular screen, the 1980 version of a movie screen, the way it was originally intended.
So you know what I'm looking at right now, Craig? I'm looking at my very favoriteest pretty miniature magazine, which
What is that?
Is War Games Soldiers and Strategy magazine this month.
Of course it is.
And right on the cover, it's got a dude, a big sort of heavy, you know, Asian-looking dude, and he's throwing a bowler cap at an unsuspecting, or maybe he is suspecting, James Bond type character there.
Right in front of a giant safe.
It is the Secret Agent / Spies issue, and there are so many cool miniatures in here based on spy stuff. It is awesome. There's just something for everyone here, and it's a great magazine. What I love so much is the pictures are so fantastic of the miniatures, and you can see the story. It's like the scene right out of the movie there, done with miniatures right on the front cover. It is fantastic. All the artworks in there is great. The articles are wonderful. This is
just amazing. And once again, we can't hit this enough. The theme being spies, but there's all kinds of other cool stuff in there too.
Right.
Ancient history, all kinds of other stuff. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out. I mean, we're advertising War Games Soldiers and Strategy, but the guys who put out War Games Soldiers and Strategy put out a whole bunch of other magazines also covering the entire gamut of history. So if you like medieval warfare, they got a magazine for that. Not just articles, but a whole magazine. Ancient warfare, they've got it all. So go on over to their website and check that out.
Definitely. And don't forget, while you're on their website, if you were to happen to see something you'd like to purchase, be sure to put in the code D6G, and you get 15% off anything on the website. A subscription, some back issues, whatever you're going to order, 15% off. The code is D6G. That's awesome. WSSmagazine.com.
Hey!
I'm Dan, your friendly professional game guide. Welcome back to When You Wish Upon a Game, where we discuss ways we can make the game industry better. What makes a game store one of the greatest game stores ever? While I was in PAX in Seattle, I had a chance to visit a few stores I had not been to before. Now, I've visited hundreds of game stores throughout my career, and most are, frankly, disappointing. Many are simply all right, and a select few are exceptional in some way. Over the past 15 years, I've worked on optimizing existing stores and opening new ones, both with Myriad Games and as an advocate for great game stores in general. So it gets me thinking whenever I visit a new store, what makes a truly great game store? And the answers to that are pretty obvious when it comes to talking about selection, price, location, and service. For selection, the Ideal Game Store has everything in stock all the time. For price, the Ideal Game Store has everything at the cheapest price available anywhere. For location, the Ideal Game Store has tons of space both for stock and for play, plenty of parking, and is easily accessible to the customer. For service, the Ideal Game Store has staff who personally know each customer, can tailor their recommendations for each individual, host events to support every game line, and generally provide for every need or desire of their customers. Of course, in reality, as with most things in life, you must choose some ideal mix of these options. The old motto is something like, good, fast, cheap. Pick two. Priorities and definitions of best will be different by person, of course, but a great game store needs to serve not just one type of gamer, but many, and most importantly, it needs to have the capacity to help grow new gamers, to introduce the wonderful world of tabletop games as a viable source of entertainment to our local communities, to show that tabletop games are fun. It's fun to interact face-to-face during a great game. It's fun to share stories of awesome victories and crushing defeats. It's fun to laugh as you recount all the amazing memories you've shared with friends and family around the table. It's fun to enjoy the social and intellectual camaraderie that analog games enable. Here at Myriad Games, we're about to launch a campaign to improve our stores, adding new services and accommodations, expanding selection, adding even more benefits to our MVP memberships, improving our locations, and even more. But the ideas behind this campaign are not simply about Myriad Games. This is about game stores as a whole. At their best, friendly professional game stores can be bastions in each local community, helping to sustain and grow the ranks of gamerdom 7 days a week. We need sustainable, stable, vibrant, professional purveyors of games in your neighborhood. How can we help make that dream a reality? That's what I see when I wish upon a game. How about you? What makes a game store truly great? What stores have gotten it right? What's your preferred mix of selection, price, and service? How can we work together to make game stores better than ever? Email me at wish@gamesalute.com. Thanks for listening and have fun playing.
I am Spartacus.
No, I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus, and so is my wife. Anyway, so we've got the big pull from Gen Con, for me anyway, and for a lot of people, at least locally, and I think a lot of people, judging from how successful the demos were, was, of course, the big game Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery.
Certainly the surprise hit of the con, that's no doubt.
It was awesome. And so what we are going to do now is one of our patent-pending D6G reviews of Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery, and bring you back in time to the slave revolts of the Roman Republic.
Ooh, sounds
Dun,
good.
dun, dun. Actually, it's before the slave revolts. In the good old days when all the rich people were, living high on the slaves, because that's what the game's all about.
That's what they do in Rome.
Yeah.
That's how they do.
That's how they roll. When in Rome.
Right.
It's going to freak you out,
Or
but
Capua.
I already want to talk about the first bullet point.
Okay. The year it was published. Go, Rafe. What do you want to think about?
Okay. 2012, Gale Force 9, also known as Battlefront.
Well, they're owned by Battlefront Miniatures. Yes.
So I know you guys are raving about the game, and I know you're surprised as to who's the publisher of the game. But what I'm wondering is, I wonder what had Gale Force 9 go, we're going to make a board game versus, say, call up Christian Peterson of Fantasy Flight Games and go, hey, guys, I just wondered, did you get any insight as to
No,
that?
It's
Why
odd that you
Gale
should
Force
mention
9
that.
made
Go
a
ahead.
game?
Go ahead, Craig.
Because yes, we did. Because the demos were all being done by the designers at
Right.
Gen Con.
Aaron, John, and Sean.
what they said was, we've been designing this game for 4 or 5 years now just because we got the idea and we loved it. And we also, oh, by the way, own a gaming company.
And they're really good with licensing deals.
They're
Remember,
awesome with licensing deals
Yes.
if you think about all the things Gale Force 9 does.
with big companies
So
like
so
Wizards of
these
the Coast.
designers are Gale Force 9 employees?
Yes, they are. The founders, actually, or some of the founders.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Gotcha. So these are gamers at heart. So these aren't outsourced game designers
No.
that then went to Gale Force 9 to try to publish the game.
No, that's what's interesting.
no,
and
yeah.
these guys have never designed a board game before, as far as I know.
Nope.
Not a published one anyway.
I believe this was their first game.
So it's pretty
That
interesting.
makes all the sense. So they said, well, we don't have to outsource this. We can do it ourselves.
I guess so. And boy,
Gotcha.
did they.
Okay.
And boy, did they.
It sounds like they made a smash hit.
Yes.
So what's in it?
Well, it's a 3 to 4 player game. So, and someone asked us recently. I actually got several emails. Can you really give a little insight into whether a game's a good 2-player game? This is not one of those. Only 3 to 4 players. 3 to 4 players, and the game length is typically 150 minutes. That's what it says in the box. It's sort of a strange time period, but I'd say it's for your first few games. Plan for 3 hours.
It is kind of a strange.
I know. Plan for 3 hours. It'll probably take you less than that, but plan for 3. MSRP, and this is what's interesting because Craig and I are sitting there demoing the game, and we're like, Craig's like, I think I should buy this. And I said, it's only $50. Oh, I'm going to buy it at $50, and then it was actually $40. It's actually MSRP $40, which I think there aren't many games that cheap right now that are actually board games with miniatures and stuff in them. So that's a pretty aggressive price point, which I like. And Rafe, why don't you, since Craig's a little sick, why don't you read this awesome paragraph describing the theme of the game?
All right. The theme. In Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery, it's an exciting game of twisted schemes and bloody combats, inspired by the hit Stars original series. Each player takes on the role of Dominus, head of a rising house in ancient Rome city of Capua. Each house is competing for influence to gain the favor of Rome. That sounds cool. Through a combination of political schemes and glorious battles on the arena sands, your house will rise in fame and stature. As Dominus, you have a variety of resources at your disposal. Guards protect you from schemes launched by rivals. Slaves run your household and earn gold. That's always fun. Gladiators compete to bring glory to themselves and influence to their Dominus.
That's exactly right. And that pretty much sums up the whole game. So basically, you're not playing a gladiator. You're playing the house that buys and sells gladiators and slaves, but mostly you're worried about how well your gladiators are going to do in the games and how much money you can make during the games and how much influence you can gain for your house.
And everybody's playing Dominus? Why isn't it Dominus and Artemis and...
Dominus is a term. It's like Lord.
Oh, it's a term.
Yeah, it's like Lord. Not a name. Not a proper name.
It's a proper name. Okay.
No, not a proper name. And so the goal, Craig, you want to read the goal paragraph here?
Yes, of course. The goal of the game is to become the most influential house in Capua, securing your family's power for years to come. During the game, players will bribe, poison, betray, steal, blackmail, and undermine each other. Gold will change hands again and again to buy support, to stay someone's hand, or influence their decisions. You will be the honorable player. Will you be the honorable player whose word is their bond, or the treacherous schemer whose alliances change with the wind? First player to 12 influence wins.
And you can already see why I like this game, because there's already scheming and backstabbing and, of course, screw your neighbor.
And poisoning and blackmailing.
And there's fighting. You guys, if this was no fighting, you might feel differently about
there's
it.
fighting, too.
I don't know.
It's pretty awesome.
Only if you tack this on like farming. If this was farmers scheming against each other, maybe not. But
I'm going to poison your beets, Craig. Craig, I'm poisoning your beets.
Cows.
I could see it.
I'm salting your fields, man, unless you pay me 5 gold.
Exactly.
All right. So one note we should
Somebody's got to skin this game.
Since this is a family show, we should mention that this game is actually rated M, and it should be rated M. Even on the side of the box, there are explicit languages.
There's a bit of an F-bomb on the side of the box.
And the cards, too, even in the rule book. So just be advised that it's based on a show that is obviously
Very
mature-themed,
adult.
and the game carries that theme through very effectively all the way through. So, just you've been warned.
Okay.
Now, what is in the box? Well, you get a cool game board off the bat, and the game board's interesting. Basically, the main part of the game board you're going to notice is a giant circle, which is the battle arena, and there's looks like a sand pit, and there is a little grid in there where the guys are going to fight on. So there's actually, you can tell automatically there's some kind of tactical
Hex
combat.
map.
Yep, goes on.
Yeah.
There's also
I thought you said grit, like they actually made it sandy.
No, grid,
Oh,
or hex, as Craig said.
I was like, wow, they're really going.
There's also little stands in the corner, but then also in the edges, there's little betting areas where you bet. See, I think Rafe is going to like this game. There's little betting areas where you bet on what's going to happen to the gladiators, too, but more about that later. You also get 4 gladiator figures, which are nice little plastic figures. They don't represent specific gladiators. It's just sort of the generic, here's the gladiator that's fighting for me this round.
Are they cool, like Descent-like plastic figures, like good ones or bendy ones?
I'd say they're about Descent quality. What do you think, Craig? Maybe not quite that good, but pretty good.
Yeah,
They're in that area.
They're like old Descent. They're not like new Descent good,
Right.
because I think the new Descent really raises the bar, but they're at least as good as the old Descent.
They're as good as what
ones.
you find in most board games. Yeah, they're pretty
Yeah.
solid. You also get these.
You could paint them up. In fact, they had some painted up at Gen Con, and they looked awesome.
Yep, they wouldn't look bad painted. You also get 4 house cards, which are basically player mats, which have some quick reference stuff on there, as well as a bunch of information we'll talk about more later. You also get 2 decks of cards. You get a market deck of cards full of things that you're going to buy to run your household, like gladiators, slaves, and then equipment you can give to your gladiators or slaves. And then you're also going to get a deck. There's also a deck of intrigue cards, and these are cards that you play as a dominus. They're going to have schemes, reaction to schemes, then of course guard cards that can help protect your house. More about those later. You also get a big old pile of tokens, 148 of those. You also get a nice pile of dice. You get 9.
Yeah.
They're all 6-sided dice. You get 9 red, 9 black, and 8 blue 6-sided dice. So plenty of dice, which is great. You never run out of dice in this game, which is nice. You also get a nice full-color rulebook full of imagery from the show, as well as some very clear examples and well-written rules. I thought the rulebook was very easy to digest. What did you think, Craig?
I absolutely thought the same thing, and I loved seeing all the screen captures from the show.
Mm-hmm.
And they carry those over into a lot of the cards also.
And there's also a little page 5 type rule in there, which was basically the spirit of the game. And it talks about how the game is full of backstabbing and the game is full of betrayal. But then it says, but don't be an ass. Play nice, which I kind of liked. So it was very cool. Now, the box set is $40. Craig, what do you think about the value for $40?
When we were playing it, I was looking at it thinking this is going to be between $50 and $60, and I'm definitely going to buy it. Mm-hmm. And when we asked and they said it was $40, I whipped out 2 20s and got it before I left the table.
Right.
$40 is a no-brainer for this game.
I agree. I think the quality of the components is there. The cards are pretty nice. It doesn't feel like a cheaply produced game in any way.
No. I think you're going to see this game going up in value in the second printing almost immediately.
It feels underpriced to me. That feels like a steal.
Absolutely.
Which is probably smart for them to get them sold. Hopefully, if they're making money on it, they'll do more with it because it's a good game. All right, so setup. What do we do? Not a very hard setup process. First thing you're going to do, everybody's going to roll some dice to figure out who gets the high roll. The high roll is going to be the starting host, and he gets a little host token in front of him or herself. Then they're going to get the host is going to get to pick which house they want to play. Now, each house does have a special power, so it's more than just fluff. The house cards are really pretty. They have a nice big picture of the head of the house from the show. So there's one with Lucy Lawless and her hubby there, right? What's their names?
Gladiatus.
Yeah. And there's all the other main houses are there. There's a nice track on the top of the card, which keeps track of your current influence. And then there's some little numbers and things there to keep track of what your starting value was, and slaves and everything else, and all that other materials right there on your cards. It's a great, easy way to look at your card, figure out what you're supposed to have, which house you want to play, and you pass it on, and then it goes around the table until everybody's picked their house.
It's also the track where you keep track of your score is right there at the top.
Yeah, the influence, exactly. Now, in addition to getting your house card, you're also going to get some matching tokens for your house. And then you're going to get your starting assets. Now, your starting assets are described right there in their house card. So as we were talking about earlier in the show, Rafe, it is asymmetric. Each house gets different starting stuff. You're going to go through the big pile of gladiator decks and find all the starting gladiators and slaves. They're white border cards. So there's very specific. So no one starts with a kick butt gladiator. Everybody starts sort of the average dudes. And based on your house, you're going to get dealt some number of these starting gladiators. Every house has got a different number. You're also going to get some number of starting slaves. And again, different houses. Some houses may be more of a slave house, less gladiatorial. Others are different ways. You also get a amount of gold to start with. And again, that's indicated on the on your card. And you're also going to get a certain number of guards. And guards are cards that come out of the influence deck. But you're going to get some of those. You're going to find some of those cards and give them to each player as well. And we'll talk about how guards work in a little bit. The last thing you'll do before you start is pick a game type. So as Craig mentioned earlier in the show, there are really different ways you can start the game, because basically the goal is to get your influence track on the top of your house sheet all the way to 12. Okay? Now, where the track starts is going to dictate game length. So the quote-unquote quick/first time you play the game, you should start at 7 influence, which means
that's what we've been doing so far.
Which means you only need to get 5 points, right, to win the game. Now, there are things that can happen to make you lose influence, too, so it's not quite that easy, but basically you got to get 5 points. The standard game, which they predict will take you 2 to 3 hours to play, is starting at 4 influence. And then the advanced game, where you're going to really take the whole game on its epic saga, is starting at 1 influence, and they say it'll take you probably over 3 hours to play the game in that mode.
Have you guys played 12?
I've only played starting at 7, although
I've only played at 7.
A couple times I wish we started earlier.
Starting at 1, Rafe?
Yes.
The choices are 7, 4, and 1.
Yeah. So no, I haven't tried 1 yet. I really want to, though, because actually I could tell the game gets a lot more interesting when you go lower,
there are
because
mechanics that don't even kick in until you
Right.
start to get low.
and we'll get more about that later, but basically lower influence, and there's certain house advantages that really don't kick in until you start lower also. So you definitely, I think you want to get to the point where you're playing at 4 influence regularly, and then the 1 influence would be like, hey, we got a Saturday afternoon to kill. Let's try out 1.
Right. Yeah.
Basically, after you figure that out, you shuffle up your 2 starting decks, your influence deck and your what's called market deck, and then you're ready to rock. So not a lot of setup really. Pick your cards, get your tokens, go. Pretty much it.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about playing the game. I already mentioned the spirit stuff. So first thing, there are actually sort of 4 major phases. The first phase is very quick and short. It's called the upkeep phase. And this phase is basically just housekeeping, but it happens at the beginning of the phase instead of the end of the phase in other games. So what you're going to do is basically refresh your cards. So there is a mechanic where certain cards can flip over when they're used. So you're just going to look in front of all the cards in front of you, flip them back over to their upside if anything needs to be refreshed.
Hey, Russ, can I pause you there?
Yeah.
Maybe I blanked out and didn't get it. So I'm confused between the starting influence and aren't I trying to get influence and those are my VP? What am I trying to do to win?
So to try to win, you go on to get to 12 influence. There's an influence
That's
track.
different than the starting influence.
Well, the starting influence is where you
it's
start.
a track from 1 to 12.
So imagine a track on your sheet from 1 to 12. There's also a token that you put on your track to tell what your current influence is. If you want to
Okay.
play a quick game, start your influence at 7.
I see.
If you want to play a longer
And then
game, start your influence
things
at
that
4.
you'll describe will tell us how we get influence
Exactly
as
right.
VPs.
And if you want to play a really long game, you start at 1, right? So you're really
Okay, I
just
get it now.
where
I
on the
get it.
track you're starting, right? It'd be like kind of starting Small World with a, everybody gets 20 victory points to begin with kind of thing.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's basically a good question, though, Rafe. I'm glad to have it here, so make sure we're not straying from the path. All right,
Right.
So again, the first thing you do, upkeep phase, really simple. Flip your cards over if they've been exhausted, which won't really happen in the first turn, but eventually they will. Also, heal your injuries. So during the course of the battle, your gladiators and your slaves, if they want to fight for you, could be injured. So if anybody's injured, you roll a d6 here, and on a 4+, they're fine. Their injury goes away. On a 1 or a 2, they remain injured, and on a 1, their injuries have gotten the better of them, and they die.
Oh, boy. The surgeon messed them up and they die.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Also happening in this phase, you have to balance your ledgers. Now, this is interesting. So this is where you get your
Wait a
gold.
minute. You're playing a game where you balance ledgers? Don't you
Oh,
make
you
fun of me
hate
for
there's
this?
all kinds
yes.
of stuff.
But we're balancing
All
our ledgers with
kinds of stuff.
slaves and gladiators. So what you basically do is all your slaves you own generate money. So each slave gives you 1 gold. Each gladiator costs you 1 gold. So if you have more slaves than gladiators, then you are making money each turn. If you have more gladiators than slaves, then you are losing money each turn from your household. So you just pay accordingly. If you don't have enough gold to pay all your gladiators, i.e., let's say you had 2 slaves and 3 gladiators, which means you net lose 1 gold. If you don't have 1 gold to pay, you would have to discard one of your gladiators to basically be able to keep your money.
I'm just thinking Craig finally found the game, balance your checkbook. Remember? He said
Exactly
he'd
right.
rather
So there you go.
play
There
that.
is an element to that.
You got to
yes.
balance your checkbook. That's the upkeep phase. So basically, you get your monies or you pay your monies depending on how your household is structured. Next up
Okay.
is the intrigue phase. Now, Rafe, why don't you read the first paragraph here?
Friendships end
Oh, yes, in the intrigue phase.
in the intrigue phase.
So, Rafe, why don't you
Real
read
life
the intrigue
friendships
phase?
end, you mean?
real life friendships.
Yes.
Okay.
The intrigue phase is when players launch their schemes, capital S, hoping to raise their fortunes while undermining their rivals. Schemes and reactions, with a capital R, are represented by cards in the intrigue deck. Players wield their influence to put their schemes into play, often asking for or bribing another player's help in hatching the most complex plot.
Right. So, in the intrigue phase,
Yeah.
we're going to be able to play cards on ourselves or each other. Okay.
Are these schemes cards?
Yes.
Yes.
So there's an intrigue deck, right? In the intrigue deck, there are several different things. There are scheme cards, and there are reaction cards. So scheme cards are basically things you can play on other people's or yourselves. There are reaction cards, which basically block schemes and other things. And then there are guard cards, which are sort of like special. They're kind of like cards you put down in front of yourself to protect your house from different things happening. So more about that in a second. So at the beginning of the intrigue phase, first, everybody draws 3 intrigue cards. Boom. Now, the hand limit in this game is based on the influence track. So if you look at your influence track, below certain sections of numbers, you will see that their hand size is indicated there. So, for example, I don't remember what they are, but let's say below, influence of 5, you may only have a hand size of 2 or 3. And then above 5 to, let's say, 8, you may have a hand size of 4 or 5. So as your influence grows, you'll be able to hang on to more of these cards. As your influence wanes, you will have to give up some of your cards. So as you can see, the game will be harder if you play with lower influence because your starting hand size is going to be smaller, and it's going to be harder to manage that hand. And at the end of the intrigue phase, you must discard down to your hand size. So you can't hang on to more than your hand limit.
Okay.
So you draw 3 intrigue cards, right? Boom. Now we're all going to start playing schemes and or cashing in cards. Okay, so the scheme cards, all the cards from the influence deck, have this little number in the corner that is their gold value. So if you want to, you can just sell those to the bank and get some gold.
Oh, okay.
Ignoring the text in the card, just say I'm going to cash them in. Or you can play the scheme on somebody. Now, one thing you want to remember in the intrigue phase is check your house's special rule, because all the house's special rules only take place in the intrigue phase. So check what your house's special rule. Craig, do you remember some special rules for the houses?
I do. There's one special rule where House Badiatus and people who watch the show are going to love this special rule for them. They exhaust 2 gladiators and they earn 2 gold for that. Mm-hmm. Then there's other houses that will exhaust 3 guards to allow them to draw more intrigue cards. So their guards are actually going out there helping them to plot intrigue. There's one where you can exhaust 2 slaves for gold, I think, or gold or cards.
Yep.
And then each one of the houses has a way that it can gain influence by burning cards.
Right.
So one burns 3 guards and gets an influence, and you can do that multiple times in one intrigue phase. So if you kind of slowly stack up on guards, you can then suddenly burn them for influence. Mm-hmm. One burns 3 gladiators, one burns 3 slaves, and one burns 1 of each.
Right. So
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Can you stack these guards? Are they beyond your hand size?
Well, what happens with guards is when you're during your intrigue phase, when you're playing schemes and stuff, you can play guards to the table next to your card, your house card, and just have it face up and say, "Look, I've got guards in my house," and put them face down. Now, face up. So you can now. What guards do, so let me just back up a second and talk about the schemes. So basically, when I play a scheme might be something like, I'm going to play the scheme on myself, and it says, you go to market and gain 3 gold, right? It could be something simple like that. Or it could be something nasty like, target another Dominus, steal 2 gold from his treasury. So I'm going to say, Craig, I'm going to target you and steal 2 gold from your treasury.
I will pay you 1 gold to do that to Rafe instead.
Well, first of all, good example, right, Craig? So it's right in the rule book. You can offer money and bribes at any moment in this game and literally pay them. So I'd be like, okay, Rafe, I'm going to steal from your treasury instead. Craig, pay me that gold. Now, Craig could say, nope, I lied. In which case I could go back and attack him, or I could be like, fine, next time I'll get you.
Or I could say, I'll pay you the gold as soon as you play the card on Rafe, because I don't really trust
so we could, but yeah, it's all working that way. So you can do that. First of all, you can do it anytime you want. So
that's cool.
If I'm going to steal from you, Rafe, and you decide you don't want to try to blackmail me to direct to someone else, you have a couple choices. You might have a reaction card in your hand that cancels what I'm doing, so you can play that. If you don't, though, you could then use a guard to attempt to stop me, because basically your guards are guarding your property.
Cool.
So if you have a guard face up in front of you or a guard in your hand, it doesn't really matter. You can play either one, and you roll a die, and on a 4+, you will cancel my scheme because your guard foiled it. Now, you can only use guards to cancel schemes against you specifically, and you lose your guard card whether or not he succeeds. So it's a risky.
Okay.
Guards aren't 100%, but you keep throwing guards at the problem if the first one fails. So to answer your initial question, I would want to put all my guards face up on the table because it comes out of my hand, so it doesn't come with my hand size. But by putting all my guards face up on my table, I'm telegraphing to the rest of the table that I have guards, right? And that if I'm a house that wants to trade guards in for intrigue, they're seeing my guard count. So it's kind of do you keep them in your hand as a secret to surprise people that you have a guard and foil them?
Can these schemes hurt gladiators?
The schemes do all kinds of stuff. You could poison a gladiator and either injure him or kill him.
Can you steal guards and slaves?
All kinds of crazy.
Cool. Okay.
Yes, all kinds of craziness. Now, one thing we should mention too, Craig mentioned that like some of the houses can basically exhaust their gladiators and earn money. The fluff on that is basically they pimp them out, literally.
Yes.
Pimp out the gladiators to make a little bit of, whoring around money, if you will. Again, it's a mature rated game, folks. Same with the slaves.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's based on the show, and it happens in the show all the time. It's one of those things. This is why it's one of the shows.
Batiatus.
That's why this is a guilty pleasure show also for us, because the same situation.
Yeah.
So that's basically the intrigue phase. The thing to remember is, again, you can play reaction cards, and it's funny because Craig might say, I'm going to steal 3 gold from you, Russ. And I might have no guards and be like, tell you what, I don't like the way Craig's been treating me this game. And B, tell you what, I don't want to lose 3 gold, but Rafe, I'll play you 2 gold to play a reaction card if you can stop him. And Rafe's like, okay. Cool. So you can basically, the bribery and treachery is happening like all the time in this game. All the time.
It's constant.
Now, there are some specific rules, though, about the bribery and the treachery. It specifically states in the intrigue phase, I can discuss barter and I can pay you gold, but I cannot trade any asset cards. So in the intrigue phase, I can't say, hey, Craig, I'll give you a gladiator to attack Rafe. Right. But I can say, I will give you 5 gold. I could say to you, hey, later in the market phase, when it's legal to trade, I will give you a gladiator in the market phase, but then he's got to trust me that that's going to happen, right? So it's less valuable than cold, hard cash.
Yep. And now,
All right.
did you talk about the influence cost on those cards?
Oh, we did not. It's a good point, Craig.
Nope, we didn't.
So on all these influence cards, there is a number in the upper right-hand corner, which is the minimum influence level you must be to play this card. Okay? So stealing from Craig's treasury might be an influence level. I only need influence level 4 to do that. Okay, no problem. But there's another one that says you gain 2 influence, but it is an influence level 6.
No, it's an influence level 12. It's like higher than that. It's
a
like
very
12.
high number. Let's say it's 12. Now, what's interesting about that is, if I'm at 12, I would win the game. But there's an option where you can ask for support. So I can say, hey, Craig, I've got a really cool scheme I want to implement. Would you be interested in helping me out implement this scheme? And I'll even pay you 2 gold if you help me out with the scheme, because it's really going to benefit everyone at the table. Or it's going to benefit you and I. Or it's going to hurt Rafe's Gladiator, who's been undefeated in 3 matches. I can hurt him right now if you're willing to help me out. And now, I don't have to show him my scheme. So Craig's got to kind of, am I telling the truth or not, right? And
Okay.
if Craig agrees, then we can add our influence together for the purpose of playing this card. And then I can reveal the card. And the card could be anything. It could benefit only me. It could benefit everybody. Who knows? But once Craig agrees, he can't back out. So,
Right.
so that's the deal. Now, you can also
That's
have multiple...
that is the only deal you cannot
Right.
like backstab
Because you're going to
on in whole
expose the
game.
card, right? So as soon as I show the card,
Yeah.
then it's... Now, you can have multiple people join in. So let's say we're playing and that's what I think makes it interesting to play a lower influence game. Like we're all at influence level 4, and we want to play one of these level 10 or so cards. You're going to need 2 or 3 guys to join in with you to make this kind of thing happen. And now you really got a wheel and deal. So, and then there's one of the house's abilities that they can play influence cards a couple levels higher than their influence. So there's some really interesting powers that kick in when you're at the lower influence levels of the game. When you're starting at 7, a lot of the influence cards kind of work for you automatically. You don't see that as much, I don't think. But really, really cool phase. You can already tell this game's got a lot of backstabbing, a lot of, people are going to be upset with each other right off the
But
bat.
it sounds fun and good natured.
Oh, yes, that's the nature of the game. And it's based on the show, right? And Rome. Now, after the influence phase,
Rome.
so we've done all that stuff. Now the influence phase is over. Remember, at the end of the influence game, we got to make sure our hand size is under control. Now it's time to go to the market phase. So the market phase is when we're going to, Craig, what does the paragraph there say about the market phase?
Well, the market phase is when players buy, sell, and trade assets, gladiators, slaves, and guards. Players also bid against each other to acquire new assets at auction. That's right, Rafe. It has an auction, and I still love it. Wealth is not the only path to success, as players bluff and bargain with each other to acquire the assets they covet.
Now, these little paragraphs I've stolen right from the rulebook, and that just shows you how much fun and well-written the rulebook is, and how it comes from a group of folks who have played a lot of miniature games, because the fluff is mixed right in with the rules in the rulebook, and it feels very much like you're reading a miniature book, actually. I thought so when I read through the book.
Yeah.
So Rafe, in the market phase, basically we're going to have a bidding.
What are the assets?
Well, the assets are either gladiators, slaves, or it's not really guards. I think it's equipment. Well, you can trade guards, but guards come in the influence phase really when you get them in your hand. But the other thing you're going to bid for is equipment for your gladiators. Now,
okay.
But
okay.
up first, the reason guards is mentioned in that paragraph is because up first is the open market. So in the open market, basically players are free to trade. They can buy, sell, and trade gladiators, slaves, or equipment with each other. Can't sell entry cards. Maybe you can't sell guards. Maybe that's a misprint in the book. Anyway, you can also sell assets to the bank for the gold list. So basically, all your gladiators and slaves and the equipment like helmets, swords, shields, nets, all the classic gladiator equipment stuff, all have a value in the corner of the card. And you can choose to sell it back to the bank for the value in the card. But you're probably going to get more money from another player. So I can say, hey, Rafe, I got this slave. I'm not really using him. You want to give me 2 gold for this slave? The bank's only going to give me 1. You might, yeah, no, whatever. Or will you trade me your better slave for my slave? I'll give you my slave in a gold if you give me your slave. So you can wheel and deal right here with anything you want. Anything that's from the market deck, you can now trade back and forth with each other. You may
What do
also
you
want
use gold for.
Well, gold is important because coming up is the auction. So once you've done all the open market and you've gotten whatever gold you want, now comes the auction phase, and here's where you start really spending your money. Now, the gold in the game is made of little tokens that look like little Roman coins, and I think they're pretty good. But Craig and some of the other lads have already replaced them with really, really cool little metal coins, and they look great.
Campaign coins, baby.
Campaign coins.
Campaign coins.
Shout out to the guys at Campaign Coins.
So what you're going to do, and they're very small coins, which is what you want, because you're going to hide these things in your hand. So during the auction phase, what we're going to do is, after everybody's done their own little trading, and you might use gold to buy some else's stuff, so there you're going to use some gold already. But let's say you don't do any open market stuff, and you're saving all your money for the auction phase. What we're going to do now is we're going to draw a number of cards from the market deck equal to the number of players in the game. We're going to put them face down in the middle of the board, just next to each other. So there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 cards face down in the middle of the table. We're going to flip over the first card, And we're going to see what it is. Oh my God, it's the awesome gladiator Spartacus, right from the show. His stats are amazing. He's fantastic. I want Spartacus fighting for me. So now we're going to bid on Spartacus. So each of us is going to take some of our coins, put them in our hand, close our hand, put our fist over the center of the table. When we all lock in, we turn our fists over, open our hands up, and say how many coins we all bid on Spartacus, right? Whoever bid the most coins wins Spartacus, and he pays that money to the bank. If there's a tie, then what happens is the two winning players are the only players left in the bidding. They put the coins they've already bid in the center of the table, and now they go back and they're going to add more coins for the next round of bidding, and they're going to do it again. So let's say Craig and I each bid 3 gold for Spartacus. We both showed 3. Everybody else bid left, so they're out. Now Craig and I go back, and I'm going to secretly put 2 more coins in my hand. So I go back in, and I reveal 2, and Craig reveals 1. I've now won Spartacus, but it cost me 5 gold total for Spartacus. Craig loses no money, right?
Okay.
So basically, you keep going. I think it's 3 rounds, right, Craig? And then if it's unresolved,
No, I think you keep going, until everybody goes 0.
Right.
Or
now,
somebody wins.
Yeah, if everybody goes 0 and it's still a tie, then the card is lost. Or if nobody bid on the card's also lost. No one wanted them. That's how you buy stuff. Now, the things in the market could be a gladiator, could be a slave, it could be a piece of equipment like a shield or a helm. So you're all fighting over this, and you get to see the card before you bid on it. Now, some of the houses have powers. No, it's not houses. Some of the slaves and gladiators have special powers, and one of the slaves I had a power where I could look at one of the cards in the market before we revealed any and kind of peek at them. So I could look at one of the cards coming up later in the auction and decide if I wanted to save gold for that. So some neat special powers on all the different cards as you buy them, and you'll see those powers on the slaves and gladiators as you're bidding for them. So like some gladiators automatically decapitate their opponent. And like, whoa, that's really cool. I want him, but everybody wants him, so they bid like crazy on that guy.
I'm sure we're going to get to it, but why am I fighting? I get the intrigue, I get the schemes. Why am I fighting with my gladiators? What's that doing for me?
Well,
we haven't got
after
little overview.
Yeah, so coming up next is the arena phase where the gladiators fight, and you can make tons of money and influence on the battle.
Okay, so you make money and influence with fighting gladiators.
So, because remember, the whole game is really around houses building their stable of gladiators, because really it's all about the betting and the gambling and the actual fighting of gladiators in the arenas. That's what it's all really about, because the whole the show's about that, and the gladiators live that lifestyle, and Dominus is basically run that lifestyle. They're the guys that basically own the horses in the Kentucky Derby. That's kind of thing going on here. So we've done our auction, we've bid, we've won our stuff. Now the last thing we do, though, and this is probably the most important part of the market phase, is bidding for hosting. Because now we're going to bid to see who gets to be the host of this round's gladiatorial combat. Who is the Dominus in charge of the games this round? And so we're going to bid for that as well. So we're going to put some coins in our hands. We're going to hold our hands closed, fists closed over the middle of the table. We're going to reveal it, and the high coins wins the honor of host. Now, if it's a tie again, you go to the multi-round bidding. If for some reason everybody bids nothing or it becomes a tie, then you dice it off. But you really want to be the host, as you will see next when we get to the arena phase. So part of the challenge of this auctioning and buying gladiators is you're trying to keep some money available to yourself to win that option of being the host. Okay. All right. So now on to the arena phase. And Rafe, why don't you read the arena phase paragraph here?
Yeah, you got it. The arena phase is when the bloody games are held. Or where? When, or where? Gladiators from 2 rival houses are pitted against each other in a brutal fight for glory. The spectacles of the games are represented by miniature combat on the arena board. Fighters pit their attack, defense, and speed dice against one another to determine the victor. All players seek to increase their fortunes by betting on the outcome of the gruesome conflict. Fighters who emerge from the arena victorious gain favor, with capital F, and their Dominus gains influence.
Right.
Okay.
So the first thing that happens, these are all the official phases of the game. First up is honor to the host.
The host.
So just for hosting the games, you get +1 influence. Now remember, if you're playing starting at 7, going to 12, you only need 5 influence to win the whole game.
Right, you just got 1.
You just got 1. So winning that hosting bid is guaranteed, boom, 1 influence, guaranteed. Huge. But it gets even better than that. Okay. The other thing that happens is then you're going to do, ignore that tribute thing, I'll come back to that. After that, you're going to do, something just happened to the whole thing. Look at that.
That wasn't me.
There you go. So after that, we're going to host the event. So the host is going to invite 2 Dominuses, one at a time, to participate in the gladiatorial combat. Now remember, gladiatorial is 1-on-1, and the host is going to pick who it's going to be. Now there could be 4 players in the game,
fun.
so it means only 2 out of the 4 players right now are going to actually fight. Now the Dominus gets to choose. So I might say, Rafe, I invite you to play in these games this day. In that voice, with that tone, because that's what you got to do.
Of course.
I can also pick myself, but I'm going to pick you first. Now, you have a couple. At this point, you're going to pick a gladiator to send to the games. Now, you can decline. You can say, no, don't want to do it. Don't want to be in the games this round. I see Russ has got that nasty gladiator over there. I know you're going to pick him next year to beat me up because I beat you up last round. So, no, I'm saying no. If you say no, that's fine. We all boo you, and you lose one influence.
Whoa.
So saying no is tough.
It's a pretty big deal.
So being the host means you can dictate. So you can say to Rafe, if you're winning the game but you have no gladiators that are good, I can force you to go in there and basically be embarrassed or say no. So saying no is tough.
I like it. That sounds fun.
Now, let's say, though, you're bold, you're brave, you got some good gladiators in your stable. Like, I gladly accept this challenge, sir, right? In that same voice, you got to do that. So you're going to pick one of your gladiators. You're going to say, I nominate my gladiator, Bob, Rafe, whatever his name is, to go to battle, and I'm going to give him this shield and this net. Right, so you decide his equipment. Now you have to bought this equipment to give it to him, but you have it. So you're telling to the table who I'm sending to the battle, and you put your little plastic guy. There's two edges to the arena. There's a Roman numeral 1 and a Roman numeral 2. I've asked you to participate first. You are the gladiator number 1. You put your guy there. Boom. So the whole table, everybody's going to be betting. They see who you're putting down and what he's got for equipment. And now I say, Craig, I invite you as well to these games, and you say,
and I look and I see that Rafe has put down a really strong guy. And I say, Russ, I will pay you 2 gold to go in yourself.
Ooh, well, I happen to know I have a great gladiator. I don't mind fighting. It's like, that sounds like a fair deal to me. So again, remember, in this phase 2, you can pay money. It's right in the book to bribe the host for anything you want. So there might be a fourth player.
I can make promises for the next round. I can say
whatever you can get me to agree to. Yes. Now you can't trade cards here either, but you can trade gold. You pretty much trade gold anytime in the game. So gold is like guaranteed money in my hand. So I can say. So Craig might say for me to go in, or if there's a fourth player playing, let's say Shifty, he might say, I'll pay you 4 gold to have Shifty go in instead. And I'd be like, fine, that sounds good to me. Yeah. Shifty, you want to pay me 5? So I keep sending Craig in there? And Shifty might be, yeah, I'll pay you 5. And then, so you can and that happens. It's hilarious.
Betrayal galore.
It's great fun.
That's awesome.
So Craig will start low, right? I'll be like, I'll pay you 2 gold to send in Shifty. Shifty go, I'll pay you 3 to send Craig in there, kind of thing. And Rafe might say, I'll send you 5 to go in yourself and send a slave against me so I auto win. Okay, fine, done, boom. Whatever you want to do. I may lie and not send a slave in there too. It's all an option. So the bribery happens, blackmail occurs. Let's say I agree to go in on myself. So I pick one of my gladiators to send in also. I decide on his equipment. Now, at this stage, we're about to fight, right? Now, before we fight, tribute happens. So your gladiators, depending on how well known they are and famous they are, like Spartacus or whomever, might get yourself some money. And basically, you're going to get 2 gold for every favor token on your gladiator, or 6 gold if you've got a champion token on your gladiator, just for having participate in the games. Basically, the clouds throw money and valuables in the arena, all that kind of stuff. Now, more about how you get those kind of tokens later, but basically, the more successful your gladiator is over the course of the game, the more favor tokens, and maybe he'll become a champion. Right? Now we're all going to place some bets. Okay. Now, this is the part of the game which I know is going to sell Rafe. In the corner of the board, there are 4 different betting zones, almost like little areas like you'd see on a craps table or on a roulette table. Okay. 2 of the zones are for victory for player 1 or victory for player 2. And remember, when you put your gladiators down and your stuff, the first person I invited is player 1, gladiator 1, and the second person is gladiator 2. So you can bet on who's going to win, and that pays 1 to 1. Okay. You can bet up to 1 to 3 coins. There's a limit on each area. When you put your coins down there, what you're going to do is, remember I mentioned there's some house tokens? The house tokens happen to be the exact same size as the coins. So I'm going to put a stack of 3 tokens on my guy to win, and I put my house, 3 coins, and I put my house token on top of that. So it's so you'll see there's 3 gold there and a little symbol of my house on top saying that's my bet stack for that thing. So all the houses will put bet stacks in there, kind of like you see in a casino, on who's going to win, player 1 or player 2. You can also bet on 2 other conditions. You can bet there's going to be an injury, which pays 2 to 1.
Pays 2 to 1. Okay.
Or you can bet there's going to be a decapitation, which also pays 2 to 1. So you can choose. You can bet on who's going to win. You can also bet on what kind of results there will be on the match as well. And it gets interesting because some of the gladiators, as I mentioned, auto decapitate or auto injure. So if you see that, you're like, ooh, I'm really going to bet on injury and try to get a nice big win on that. Now, after the betting occurs, though, there is this really, really one nasty influence card, right, Rafe, Craig? That lets you play it. That lets you swap out one of the gladiators right at the last minute. Which is brutal because all of a sudden the bets have been made. Everybody thinks, and all of a sudden this guy goes, "Ha ha! I forced you to change your gladiator," and you're like, oh no. So everybody at the table gets shenaniganed on that
That's
one.
known as the 0 or double 0 on the roulette wheel.
Right.
And
so
that is awesome when you play it on a guy who has an awesome gladiator, but only one.
Right.
Because you can send slaves into the combat
Arena,
if
right.
you don't have anyone else. So you can be, oh, that guy can't play anymore. Oh, you're gonna have to throw a slave. So all of a sudden, everybody's bet on this guy, and instead, it's a slave going into
a
fight.
slave.
And that move can be
Oh,
telegraphed
man.
though, because if you see someone like Shifty putting coins against the obvious loser, but he's betting on him, he might be getting ready to play that card. So it's like he's fixing, and I think it's called like fixing the match, something like that, where you're actually switching out gladiators.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. It's got all those elements of a great, sports betting match with all the crazy corruption that can happen inside of it. So that's the betting. So we placed our wagers, we've locked
That
in our
sounds
money.
fun.
They got it on there. Now it's time to fight. You've got these two little plastic miniatures on the opposite sides of this hex covered arena. You're ready to play, and then combat happens. Now I'm going to come back to how combat works because it's almost like a mini game. So there's a mini combat game. The gladiators fight. There's lots of cheering. There's oh my gosh, and then someone wins. Now, after the battle's over, it's not a fight to the death always. Usually it's a fight till someone yields. Okay, so after it's over, there's going to be a winner and a loser. The victorious Dominus. He's going to get +1 influence, which I think we forgot to do the first time we played the game, which is kind of huge.
We did.
So the Dominus gets +1 influence right there. So basically, if you're the host and you win, you're looking at +2 Dominus in one round, which is huge. So if you want to host, if you got a kick butt, almost undefeatable stable of gladiators, you're doing something right. Especially since you can pick the other guy, and the other guy is probably going to be the guy with really crappy gladiators. He's either going to have to take a negative influence or go out against you and give you a free win, right? So that's good. Also, the gladiator who wins also gets one of those favor tokens. Ka-tink. Put a little token on his card. That stays with his card. So the next time he fights, he's going to earn you extra money for going into the arena. And if you get your third favor token, that turns into a champion token. So basically, if you become a well-known
I was
victor,
wondering how you get those.
and that's how you get those, which give you money for fielding. So basically, the crowds love you, blah, blah, blah. Woohoo. Now, also, if you get a card that becomes a champion, if a gladiator of yours becomes a champion, you get +1 influence. But if you ever lose that champion for any reason, you lose 1 influence. So basically, you get well known for having a champion. You also settle the wages this time, so now we pay out the bets. So any money that didn't win is all taken off the table. Anybody who had winners is paid out, and they're gold. And finally, the host gets to do the very classic Roman thumbs up or thumbs down, right? So now you've got this guy who's not dead, but he's lost. And the host can now go thumbs up, which means he lives to fight another day, and you get back your gladiator. He may or may not be even injured. So you can lose the game without even being injured. Lose the battle, without being injured. And you just get your gladiator back, unless the host kills him. The host could be like, thumbs down, he's dead. And at this point, the host could say, you want to make it worth my while to leave your guy alive? How about a couple gold or something,
So other people can bribe him to kill him.
Or be like, dude, I'm sick of fighting that guy. He always auto-injures. Someone finally beat him. I'll pay you 2 gold. Hey, rest of the table. Why don't we all pay Russ 2 gold to kill that guy, right? And so that happens, which is awesome. So you go thumbs down, the guy's died, thumbs up, he lives. I think there's a rule that you can't kill a champion. Is that right, Craig? Or something like that. Maybe you can't kill Spartacus.
Yeah, you can't. If you kill somebody
champion?
with favor, you lose an influence.
I think you lose
and
influence.
you cannot kill a champion.
Right. So I think so like Spartacus, right? They always want to kill Spartacus, but he's so well loved they can't do it. There's that mechanic in the game too. So if you kill, so it's harder to do that. So you have to be really getting paid big money to take the influence hit on killing those guys. So that's pretty much the game except for combat. So let's talk about combat. First of all, Rafe, does the whole thing make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does.
That's pretty cool. So now
I
combat.
love the combat is so elegant and
Combat's
fun and
fast and simple, really is. So there's basically 3 stats on your combatant, right? And slaves have these stats too because you could throw a slave in as a gladiator if you had to because you didn't have one, you want to throw the fight or whatever. In fact, there's a card I think that you can play that if you lose a battle, you gain influence. So there's some neat, there's all kinds of incentives to do all kinds of crazy evil stuff, which is awesome. So what are the 3 stats, Craig?
The stats are offensive attack dice, which are red, defense dice, which are black, and speed dice, which are blue.
Right. So what you basically do is during your turn, you're going to be able to move and then fight, right?
Or fight and then move.
Or fight and then move. To determine who goes first, you're going to roll your pool of speed dice. Now,
so what you want to do first is when you've got your card out, you're going to build your pools right off the bat.
Right.
You need to keep them in front of you at all times.
And each stat has got a
does
number.
This gladiator card have stats on them?
Yes. So what Craig was describing was your gladiator card's got 3 stats written in different numbers on different colored backgrounds. So let's say there's a 4 on red. That's your attack dice. You get 4 red dice.
4 red dice.
And then you've got, let's say, 3 on black. That's your defense. You get 3 black dice. And let's say you got 3 on blue. That's your speed. You get 3 blue dice. Okay.
Okay.
I just made those numbers up. I don't know if those are real.
Right.
Then what you're going to do is you're going to see who gets initiative. To get initiative is based on your speed. So you roll all your blue dice, right, Craig?
Yes, and you add together.
I add them up. So let's say I got 3 blue dice. Let's say Craig's guy's really fast. He's got 4 blue dice, but I still might roll lucky. But let's say he rolls higher than I do. He gets to go first. So he gets to move.
Or make you go first.
Or make me go first, right. You can choose who gets the initiative.
Yeah.
Whoever's got initiative then is going to move and attack, or attack then move, right? That's the scoop. You can do either one or the other. So, and you got to be adjacent to fight, unless you got a special weapon. I don't think there's any ranged weapons, but there may be.
There are.
Okay, there are. Good.
There's spears and tridents. Tridents allow you to attack from 1 hex away.
Oh, cool.
And spears allow you a once per game attack up to 4 hexes away.
Nice.
Oh,
so there are
cool.
range attacks. Awesome. So, but basically, most of the time you have to get to the guy. So you might move, and the distance you can move is equal to the number of speed dice you have, not the roll you make. So if your speed is 3, you can move 3 hexes, right? So, so I move 3 towards you, right? So let's say I have to go first. I get next to Craig, and I'm going to attack him. So I'm going to roll now to attack Craig. I'm going to roll my red dice pool, my attack dice.
And to defend, I'm going to roll my defense dice, my black dice.
Right.
Makes
and
sense.
whoever rolls, we're going to roll those dice. We're going to add them all up, and the high number is the winner, right?
We're not going to add them all
okay.
up. We're going to make a die string.
Oh, you're right. I totally forgot about that. Right? It's actually, it's Arcane Legion's mechanic. So make a dice string. So I'm going to roll my dice, and Craig's going to roll his dice.
And we're going to line them up from highest
to
roll
highest.
to lowest roll, and then compare them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
like Risk.
Yeah. What kind of? Yes. So my 6 goes against. So my highest roll goes against Craig. Highest roll, and ties go to the defender, right?
Yeah, ties go to the defender, unless there are a couple gladiators that mess with that.
So if I have a
yes.
6 and Craig's got a 6, those cancel each other out. Let's say my next highest die roll is a 5 and his is a 4, so my 5 beats his 4. And then let's say my next
1 wound.
Right. So next to my next highest die roll is a 3 and his is a 3, so that blocks each other out. And then I can't remember if I said you had 4 speed. So then, and if there's any leftovers that aren't paired dice, I have to get at least a 3 for it to count, right?
Right. Unopposed attack dice have to have a 3 or better to cause a wound.
Right. So that's basically
Can
how
I
it works.
cause wounds back at the same time?
No, not on defense. Not the black dice. So
what? So you picked 2 ties, so the first one was a tie. The second one, Russ wins.
Yep.
What if the third one was Craig won as defender?
Oh, but that doesn't matter.
Then it blocks.
It blocks. Yeah,
And it
tie is
blocks.
as good as a
Okay.
block. Yeah, tie goes to the defender. It's the same as him winning, right? So basically, the number of my dice that beat the number of Craig's dice then indicates how many wounds I do to Craig. Now, this mechanic I love.
This is awesome.
To imply the wounds, you don't mark anything down. You simply remove dice from your pool. So Craig can decide if I do 1 wound to Craig, he can decide he's going to remove 1 red die, or he can remove 1 black die, or he can remove 1 blue die. So basically,
That's cool.
his ability is going to deteriorate as we fight. So he might decide first, I'm going to remove a blue die because I'm going to keep my defense and my offense up. But now his speed is slower because remember you move a distance equal to your blue dice count, and his chance to win initiative is now lower because now he's got less dice. So you're going to start seeing your gladiator is going to get slower, and you're going to feel that he's not defending as well.
It's awesome.
And
It's
so
very
it's exactly
cinematic.
what you want. And basically how it works is you keep fighting back and forth, taking alternating turns until someone runs out of 1 pool of dice. So if I run out of all of my black, all of my blue, or all of my red, just by that by itself, then I am beaten but not injured or dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now there's a rule called the rule of 1, where you're not allowed to reduce any pool of dice below 1 until they're all at 1.
Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
basically, but as soon as my 1 pool goes to 0, then basically I'm passed out on the ground, but I'm not injured. In that case, there's a winner declared.
It's called the missio.
Right, and then nobody's hurt.
Missio. You give your little fingers up in the air, and you're like, please
Oh,
don't kill
please
me.
don't
I
kill
give
me.
up.
Right, I yield. So that's the one way that can happen. Now, if 2 dice are removed, so you only have 1
In
dice
one-
color left.
In 1 attack.
Right, so
one
there's 1
attack.
attack
Oh,
happens,
okay.
and he takes out 2 of my dice pools. Now I'm hurt. Okay, so now the battle is still over. I still yield, but I'm injured, which means I'm going to get an injured token on my guy, which is going to take the next upkeep phase to try to heal. Right? Remember how that
Yep.
worked?
And wagers may pay
And
off.
now anybody bet on injuries winning some 2-to-1 odds, which is great. And if all 3 of my pools are wiped out, guess what? I'm decapitated. And
Cool.
you got a decapitation. It's really pretty simple, actually. The combat's very simple, but it's just enough tactical and just enough thinking
Yeah,
that
sounds-
it's actually very interesting. So
I'm impressed with these designers.
I know, right? That's the whole game. That's it.
Yeah.
And you keep repeating that until someone hits 12 for their influence track. And that's it.
Can Craig yield at any time?
No.
1 attack, 1 swing.
Nope.
A yield.
No.
No, you
gotta-
can't. The yielding is not something you do voluntarily. Yielding is something that automatically happens when only one of your dice pools is reduced to 0.
Right.
Okay.
And slaves usually have very low dice pools, like
I think they're all 1-1-1.
1-1-1. So basically, he's going in as soon as a slave gets hit, he's dead. But the problem is, if the attacker's rolling like 4 attack dice, it's a good chance he's going to take out 2 of the defender's dice right there. So you're looking at an injury, possibly decapitation, pretty good odds. Yeah. So again, that's why the betting starts happening. Like, oh, well, he's fighting a slave, and that's freaking Spartacus. He's almost certainly going to decapitate the dude until something weird happens, and you don't know what's going to happen in a bad die roll or whatever. So it's really neat. So that's really the whole thing, right?
Okay,
Yep,
so
that's it.
so a gladiator's knocked down, and the host gives the thumb up, so the gladiator lives.
Yep.
He limps back to,
He
and
goes
that's
back-
when you do in the upkeep phase, you can then heal.
Yep. So in the upkeep,
If he's injured,
So in the next
How do you
turn,
heal? You pay gold?
well, no, in the
it's a
next
die roll.
in the next turn's upkeep phase, you roll a d6,
right.
and on a 4 better, he's healed. And remember, on a 2 or 3 nothing happens, and on a 1 he's dead. But there are cards, there are slaves
You can buy an apothecary slave
Yep.
that makes it.
who lets you
can
reroll.
reroll.
So there are cards that help make that better too, right? But the core mechanics, that's basically how it works. So if he's not injured at all, though, he just goes back to your home and he's ready for next turn. Basically, that's it.
How is it that he's not injured? Because isn't it if
Well, because if one dice, remember, you have 3 colored pools, right, of dice. So if one pool's reduced to 0, the battle's over, but he's not hurt.
Oh, that's how he's
If
not
2
injured.
pools are reduced to 0,
2 pools.
he's
is
injured. If 3 pools are reduced to 0, he's dead.
Right.
Okay.
And we should reiterate, because this was confusing locally, that your speed is the number of blue dice you have in any given turn, not the total that you roll for your initiative.
Right. The total you roll for initiative is just your who goes first.
That's just your initiative.
Right. That's the whole game. That's
Well,
it.
when does Russ just combated Craig? When does Craig get to fight back?
Well, no, we would keep
Then
going back and
you
forth.
alternate turns.
Yeah, so-
he fights me, and then
So I hit
get
him
to
once
fight
and I remove
him.
1 die from his pool, right? So now it's Craig's turn. Craig moves, he attacks me, maybe he gets 2 hits on me, I lose 2 dice from my pool. We keep going back and forth, moving and fighting until one of us is one of those end conditions, one of us is out of
Right.
dice.
And it's almost always exactly like in the TV shows and the movies, because people are taking speed dice first,
Yep.
because they want to maintain their defense and their offensive capability. But all of a sudden, they're down to 1 speed die, so they're limping around the arena, and
Yeah.
that allows the other guy to just sort of dance around them and get into an advantageous position where you can attack and then move too far away so they can't catch you. And then the next turn, you move and you attack, and then you move too far. And it's really crazy cinematic.
And that's why the javelins
that's cool.
are such a great weapon, because you throw him from far away, injure the guy, he's going to take it off his speed dice.
Yeah.
And now he's slowed down. So he's like shot you threw a javelin into his thigh. He's like, oh, so the cinematics are right there. You definitely
cool.
see it and feel it. It captures. It does such a great job. We're almost summing up here now, but it does such a great job of capturing that feeling.
It's great.
So before we sum up, though,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
in the style of a Roman Dominus, you knew this was coming.
Sure.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah, I knew it was
Please
coming.
describe in your sickly self there the patent pending D6G rating system.
Okay. Welcome, friends, to this our great game. I would like for you now to know what makes a game great. What amongst the gods tells us that a game is going to be great? It is classified as a number, my friends, a number from 2 to 6, and the lower that number is, the greater that game. So a 2, for instance, is a great game. A 6, not so great. And of course, because we are completely mathematically idiot, we can throw in what we call a reroll, which is a half to us, but not to anyone else, because we are the lords of the arena, and we make the rules.
Well done, set.
Thank you.
All right, here's some laurels. Okay, so Craig, why don't you start off by summing up for us what you thought of this?
My thoughts
game?
on this game are: I don't see this game. My initial thought was, the game kind of outlasts its welcome a tiny little bit. I don't think that at all now, because like I said, in achievements, these games are starting to whip past when we start at 7, to the point where we were discussing last night we have to starting at 4 just to get a really solid game out of it, because the games are going so fast now, you don't have time to build up a cool stable of gladiators.
Right.
I don't think this game fails on any level for me personally. I love the intrigue. I love the show. So the theme is a huge lock for me, and I don't take anything personally when it's happening. You get frustrated when you've got like this big, huge plan and all of a sudden it doesn't come to fruition. Like I was at 11 influence because I had done a whole bunch of stuff in one game, and I was holding the card that allowed me to get 1 influence if any gladiator, or if the card said, it was a reaction card that said, if a gladiator dies in the arena, that gladiator's dominus gets 1 influence. And so I conned Pete, who's a very dramatic guy. I was like, Peter, how about a huge clash of the Titans? Because I had an awesome gladiator and he had an awesome gladiator. And I was like, and to show you that I mean well, I will put my gladiator in first. And I put my awesome guy in, and he had a net and a shield and a sword. And Pete was like, I will rise to the challenge. And he put his huge guy in. And then I used that card that makes a gladiator, it fixes the match. And I used it on myself. And I replaced my gladiator with a starting gladiator who was like weak, weedy, didn't have any equipment. And everybody's like, why did you do that? And I'm like, haha, because I have a scheme. I have a plan in my head.
Sounds like a Rafe plan here.
No, because if he killed my guy, I won the game.
Right.
I know,
And
but everyone's questioning you.
Yeah,
why are you
exactly.
doing that?
Well, and because this is this game, everybody's like, oh man, what do you have?
Oh, okay.
It's not like, wow, you're an idiot. It's more like, oh, you have a card that makes this make sense. That's everything in this game that seems bizarre is because there's a card somewhere that makes it make sense.
Okay.
And so Pete came at me and he was like all annoyed and he whiffed every roll and he injured me, and he had a sword which allowed him to he injured me but didn't kill me. He had a sword that a sword allows you to reroll 1 attack, and I had like 1 defense die and he whiffed it. And I was like, Pete, come on, you've got to use your sword to re-roll that last die. And he's like, why would I do that? I don't know why I would do that. You've obviously got a card that makes this advantageous to you. And I was like, I have 5 gold left in the whole
He's
bank.
throwing the match on you.
I will give it to you if you re-roll that die.
He's like, you're not worthy of my blade.
Exactly. So he takes my 5 gold, re-rolls the friggin' die, and loses again. I was like, seriously, man. And that took all of my effort. It took all of my cards. I exhausted all of my guards because I had the Roman Legionnaire that allows you to gain influence by burning guards. I burnt all my guards to get up there. I spent all my gold to be the host to get up there. I really literally exhausted everything I owned, and then on 1 die roll of Pete's, it failed and it all collapsed. And the game wasn't over. Instead, I had to continue playing as like this poor, decrepit house with nothing.
And that didn't frustrate you. You enjoyed that, apparently.
No, it was awesome because then all of a sudden you start getting hit with all these cards. There's cards that will really mess you up for going to 0 on any of your assets.
Yeah.
So there's a card that will knock you for influence if you have 0 slaves, 0 guards, or 0 gladiators, and they're all awesome and they're fluffy and they're really funny with the way they're written.
And 0 gold. I got Matt with the 0 gold one.
Yeah, there's a 0 gold one where you.
So
get
you
messed
basically
up.
got to keep your house in balance, and if you're not, your opponents will mess with you. And if you have no guards, you can't stop all that. So
Exactly.
0 guards is bad too.
Yeah, the little mini combat game in the middle is awesome. I can't tell you how many stand up and cheer moments every play of Spartacus has had as we've played it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say this game is a 3+ with a reroll. And I'm going to say if you like anything about Rome, or you like Spartacus the TV show, or you like gladiators, or anything within that genre, it's a +1. So it's going to be a 2+ with a reroll if you fall into any of those categories.
That is a bold rating, sir. Bold.
This game is a huge win on every level for me.
All right, so I have to ask. I get the whole +1, and if you like Rome, but like it sounds like there's no way anybody could not like the game. Or can you picture a gamer? Well, if you don't like this,
this is kind of like, to me, this is an American in-your-face Euro game.
I see. Okay.
Here's your bidding, and here's your, and it's everything that goes into your games, but this is totally American because look, there's fighting and blood and the F word, and so I mean, yeah. So
if that offends your sensibilities, that's what's giving you the 3+.
I like elegant mechanics and blah blah. This game's got it all, but it's got it all in this brutal, backstabbing, treacherous environment. So if you don't like games where you're fighting against your friends and like diplomacy times 10, and then this is not going to be for you. So I'll give it a -1 if you don't like adversarial social games where there's no mechanic that's forcing people to be nice to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even honorable.
Definitely an adversarial game.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, so I'll go next. So,
Rafe, thank you for that clarification, because I do think that -1 should throw in there. It might even be -2. Actually, it might even be -3 if you don't like adversarial in your face games, because this is the adversarial in your face game.
It definitely is, and I think that's why I like it, because I love these kind of games. I love Screw Your Neighbor games. I love the theme. I love the show also. It is so captures, even if you don't know the show. I don't think you have to know Spartacus. If you like Rome though, and you're familiar with how the whole gladiatorial process worked.
Who doesn't like gladiators?
I know. Do you like gladiators?
It's not even like picking between ninjas and pirates.
It's not. It's
like
just,
gladiators just win.
Dude, right. And it's
win.
It so models it so well. It's got a great combat system. The only problem with the combat system is really that I can't get the song out of my head whenever it starts.
What?
I have to. This just starts playing in my head. I just can't get it out, and it just goes around in my head over and over again. And it's totally the wrong genre. I mean, it's sci-fi. It shouldn't even be there, but I can't get it out of my head at all. But like, yeah, get him! Swing this! Oh, slash on Kirk's chest! Oh no! So I definitely have a problem with that. But that's what makes it great. The fighting thing is awesome. The rule set's fantastic. I love the bidding mechanic. I like hidden
the fight
bidding.
Scene with Spock, and he's like in the Panfar.
That is the Ponfar. Very good, Rick. That is the Ponfar episode. Yes, very well done. Wow. That's my classic fight music. It's always any one-on-one combat. That music goes in my head for some reason. I have the Christmas ornament too. You can play it. It plays the music in the tree. It's a problem.
I have one too. I have one on the shuttlecraft. It goes Spock here.
Right.
Merry
Shuttlecraft
Christmas,
Enterprise.
like
Shuttlecraft Enterprise. Spock here.
Yes,
Live long and prosper.
It is. It's that one.
I have all the Star Trek ornaments. I'm not going to lie. It happens. My wife's total fangirl. Do the math. So it's pretty awesome. Craig, I'm right there with you on the rating right down the line. Exact same rating. It's basically a 3+, 2+ if you like Rome or Spartacus, or Screw Your Neighbor games. And I would give it I don't know if a -3, but a -2 if you don't like. It's definitely an adversarial game. It's definitely a Screw Your Neighbor game. You're going to break promises to each other. If you don't like that kind of thing in your games, you're not going to like this. I think it's got everything. It's got value. It's got components. It's got clear rules. It's got theme. This game is pure win.
Yep.
That's all I can say. What do you think, Rafe, after all that?
All right. Well, I remember listening to a couple episodes ago, and I think Craig was talking about the rating system, and he was like, people, it's not what we think of the game, it's what we think the average gamer would think of the game.
Well, that's Russ and I, and you've always been different.
That's what I wanted to clarify since I haven't been on in a while, is I'm going to rate it on what I think, and my theory is that Rafe likes Agricola, so maybe I'd like this game or something crazy like that. Right. So I think my desire to play the game is a 2+ with a reroll.
Wow.
I think after playing the game, I'm sure I'll like the game. God, it sounds like 2+ with a reroll, really. I can't think of one thing that you said that made me go, I don't think I'd like that. I like auctions. I like clinking coins. I like holding the coins and putting them out and going, aha. You have to save coins to become the host. The combat's simple enough so it doesn't break my brain. It sounds like you can get different gladiators with different skills, with different equipment. It sounds awesome. The fight combat sounds simple but fun with choices to make. It looks like there's room for expansions. You can have
Actually, they've already got an expansion.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's going to add 2 more players and allow 4 gladiators to fight in the arena at once.
Nice.
And add animals.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
animals.
That's what I was thinking. I was wondering lions. You could put lions out there.
Yeah.
You could build not even just having different equipment, which would be easy expansions, but it sounds like you can, you might even be able to add different things behind the scenes, different servants that do different things maybe. So it sounds awesome. Infinitely expandable.
Well, Rafe, it's funny when I first, because Nicole and I stumbled upon this game, and when I saw it at Gen Con, I immediately thought of Craig because of the theme, and I know how much he likes Rome. So I was like, I got to show this to Craig. But then when I played the demo with Craig, all I kept thinking was the betting mechanic. I kept thinking of you. I was like, Rafe will love the betting mechanics in this game.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'm not surprised you're excited to play it. This game really, I think, appeals to everybody. So rush out when you see Spartacus on the shelf. Don't be afraid of the fact that it's from a new publisher and a new game company that you never heard of before.
I got one last thing for Craig.
What?
So if people want to do the campaign coins, can you direct them? What do they need to buy? Is it called the Spartacus Campaign Coin Kit? Do you need 12 brass coins and 13?
No, not at all. Well, you can go to campaigncoins.com, okay, which is their website.
Yep.
And basically what happens is you can go to their store, and it allows you to choose from copper, silver, gold, platinum, or a box set. You want to go to, for my choice, copper or gold. I think I chose copper, so they look a little dirtier. And what I would recommend is I would recommend they cost basically 80 cents a piece. And I'm looking at them right now. It would be super easy. I would recommend 4 10-packs and 4 10-packs of a 1 gold coin each.
Okay.
So
One gold unit.
that gives you 40 singles. And then I would recommend a few 5s.
Okay. All in the copper color.
Yeah, and they all match if you choose the right colors.
So the 5s aren't a different color.
The 5s aren't a different color. They have a different design, and they have a ridged edge. So when you're holding them under the table, if you're like not if you're not numb or something, you can you can figure out how much you have by counting.
One thing to remember, if you decide to go with another vendor or whatever, you want to be able to hold and hide a good number of coins in your hand at one time. So
you don't want to use big giant plastic coins from Conquest of the Empire or whatever.
It's got to be smaller stuff. Yeah, right.
Yep, and they have to stack. So there's a lot of the campaign coins that had not huge, but had a nice booth at Gen Con and their listeners. Just happened to hit the sweet spot, exactly what I wanted for this game, and did it awesomely. So,
nice.
But you don't need it either. You totally don't need it. It comes with cool little linen. Yeah. Everything in the game is also, we should say, that linen card also. Right. So the coins it comes with are very cool, high quality board game pieces.
Yeah, you don't need it, but it's cool.
It's fun to bling it out.
It is very fun to bling it out.
So is that Spartacus?
That is Spartacus.
Nice.
You looking for news, reviews, and interviews? The D6 generation. It's groovy is as groovy does define, baby. The D6 generation. Born to game. Oh, yeah.
And as we continue to clean up some of the old business from Gen Con 2012 and start looking forward to 2013, Terrace, of course, of Geek Nation Tours, and we want to thank him again for those lovely blue bowling shirts that he gave us.
They were very lovely.
They were lovely. It was very nice to be included and feel like we were part of the whole group.
It was so sweet.
Terrace wants to say thanks to all the tour participants, the Gen Con crew, and the D6G crew for such a wonderful experience. And he wants you to keep your eyes out for 2013 because that tour is going to be awesome.
That's right.
It is going to be awesome. But there's a whole bunch more going on between now and then, isn't there, Russ?
Round the clock and round the year at Geek Nation Tours. And what you want to do is head over to geeknationtours.com and click on the upcoming tours link, and you will see all the touring hotness that GNT has to offer. And boy, do they offer a lot. Doesn't matter what you are. Doesn't matter if you're a gamer, a Trekker, a Twilight fan, you name it, comic book fan, whatever. Yeah. Geek Nation Tours has a tour just for you. Yep. So that's geeknationtours.com and click on upcoming tours for all the deets.
Has all kinds of cool stuff right around the corner. This edition of Jever Notice is brought to you by Trevor with an awesome quote. Whether I grow up to be a businessman or a garbage man, I will judge my life on whether I grew up to be a good man. I love that quote. I'm going to steal it. Do you ever notice how strange compulsions work? And by compulsions, I mean, those things that all of a sudden we feel motivated to do, even though we don't really know why. I mean, as gamers, we have all kinds of compulsions. That compulsion to collect everything to the exclusion of all else if we're starting a new army or games with expansions or something like that. But, I mean, even stranger compulsions than that. And the reason that I'm talking about that today is because in a very interesting twist of fate, my doctor, and I don't think you can hear because I actually just took all my medicine, so I probably sound better. But I'm actually, see, there we go. Anyway, so my doctor is directly across the street from a game store. And so whenever I go to the doctor's, when I'm coming out, I feel like, geez, I mean, do I have enough time? I'd kind of like to stop by the game store. And the interesting thing is this is not a friendly professional game store. This is a game store that doesn't have a lot of stuff. Its shelves are generally sort of anemic. The service isn't that great, and I can guarantee you that anything I want there I can find elsewhere without having to like search for somebody to take my money and things like that. And yet every time I get out of the doctor's, I have to go and look. I can't stop myself. And so on Friday, with a pneumonia scare right in my face, I went to the doctors. They did all this stuff. They gave me all this medicine. Of course, modern medicine being what it is, they can't exactly tell you because they're, in America anyway, they're afraid of getting sued if they're wrong. So instead of getting told what they think it is, you get told an array of things that it might be, and it's very intriguing. But anyway, so I get out of the doctors without a lot of answers, but a giant handful of prescriptions. And so I think to myself, I kind of owe it to myself. I'm going to go over to that store. And I did. And of course, I didn't find anything that I needed or wanted or could even possibly use. And the interesting thing is that my friendly professional gaming store is on my way home from my doctor. So it's kind of like this little gaming mecca area because of right where my doctor is located. So why would I go into that store knowing that I could probably get whatever I find there in a slightly easier way at this other store, Myriad Games, on my way home? And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about you guys because I'm constantly now thinking about what I should be doing my Jever Notice about. And I was thinking, like, why did I go in there? And I think, you know why? I think because hope springs eternal in the hearts of lovers, fools, and gamers. I think we're always hoping, like, you can find that one rare thing, that one thing that, like, either sold out everywhere and this one dusty little store has it, or that one thing that isn't out yet, but for some reason it's out at that store. And there are just enough little urban myths out there to support that thought. There's Shifty, who got the Imperial Guard Codex early because the guy at the store didn't know he wasn't supposed to sell it. There's, I really wanted that Savage Worlds Necessary Evil book, but it was like $1,000 on eBay. I'm making that up. But, I didn't want to get it on eBay it was a lot of money on eBay. And I walked into this store, the very store that's across from my doctor, and there it was on the shelf for like $20. And so it does occasionally happen. And I think that expands to lots of different things too in the gaming community, where you really kind of there's always hope, and I think that springs also to the types of games that we play, and especially if you look at some players' strategies, like Rafe is always doing the wackiest stuff because there's always hope, in a well-designed game. There's always hope you can pull it off or some wacky thing will work. And so I thought that was a really nice thing. And I thought, what a good, nice thing to talk about on my first Jever Notice back from my little walkabout. And I think that's true. I think it's very true when you look at gamers as a whole, that we're always hoping. Why else do we go through bin after bin after bin in the vendor halls of all these different conventions, right? Just hoping that maybe everybody else missed that one little gem that you've been looking for. And so that's what I leave you with today. My thought that we as a group are a very hopeful group. And I think that's another cool thing about us. And that's about all I've got to say about that today. Thanks for listening and good night. But wait, there's more. I know I said that I was going to have a little bit of a contest, and I know most of you who were very nice to respond. And now we're way over the number that I ever thought we would ever possibly hit. And I know you guys said that many of you said you didn't want to, and you didn't want to be included in the contest. You just wanted to help, and I really appreciate that. But I included everybody in the contest. So here's what I did. I rolled percentile dice with a little tweak because I needed more. And you know what I rolled? I rolled my original 10-sided die from my original basic Dungeons & Dragons game that I found in my basement. My little pale blue, still with the little white crayon wax in it from when I did that. Oh, God, so many years ago. Many of you are. This die is older than many of you. And so I rolled up, and 5 people, and I'm going to email them shortly. 5 people are going to get an email from me thanking them specifically. I thanked everybody, and I returned every email. Actually, that's a lie. There's still 10 from Gen Con that I haven't gotten to, but I will get to. Anyway, I'm going to I'll tell the 5 people, and I'm going to give them one of our patches. Don't tell Russ. I secretly kept 5 patches from Gen Con. So each of those 5 people are going to get a patch and a little something extra that I had laying around from prize support. So thank you again, everybody that helped. I really appreciate it. It meant a lot to me, especially at the end of this summer of suck, which I guess is moving on into the autumn of awfulness with my cold and everything. But you know what? I'm good. I'm good with you guys out there and my friends and everything. It's awesome. So thank you again, and look for those. Actually, hopefully by the time you are hearing this, you've already got those emails. And just thanks guys. You were there when I needed you, and I really, really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Achievement unlocked. You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.